Chapter 141, Ayaka's Power Boom. The huge explosion blasted 5 bison into ashes and separated a third of its herd with a wall of fire. We have killed 8 bison and separated 12 of them with the wall of fire, which means 30 of them are charging at us, Kai reported according to his ears. All right. Should we control those bison in this place while killing as much as possible? Ayaka asked while pointing her spear at the bison. Kai smiled as he took out his swords. Like having the same instinct, both of them jumped forth at the same time. There were 3 bison in the first row. Kai struck the left bison's horn to stop his momentum before using it as a pivot point to spin his body in the air. On the other hand, the bison couldn't stop its momentum, passing Kai a little bit and giving him a precious chance to strike them. Kai obviously wouldn't let this chance go. With the spinning force from earlier, Kai swung both of his swords to their neck. Due to him spinning clockwise, he struck the right bison from above, while another one from below. Nonetheless, their neck didn't have the same hardness as their horns, and Kai's strength was enough to slice their neck. At the same time, Ayaka also didn't need to use such a trick as Kai. The spear that contained more than half a ton unleashed its true might. She raised the spear high before swinging it down. The bison wouldn't let her and tilted his head a bit to block Ayaka's spear. Unfortunately, the confidence in their own hard horns became the weapon that killed them. There was a different concept between Kai striking at his full power with a light sword and Ayaka using her spear's momentum and weight. In terms of the destructive power alone, Ayaka might already surpass him. She built all the momentum she could was just for this. The spear that was blocked by the horn quickly shattered the horn along with the bison's head. It didn't stop there. Instead, it continued and struck the ground, creating a small crater on the ground like she pounced the ground with a huge hammer. The spear stuck on the ground, but this was Ayaka's target all along. Without a single waste movement, Ayaka pushed the spear's handle to the ground yet again, even though it was already stuck. This acrobatic motion allowed Ayaka to shoot herself to the sky while pulling the spear out of the ground by using the momentum. At the same time, a pair of fire wings appeared on her back, allowing her to land perfectly on the ground before running toward the bison at high speed to create another momentum. This was Ayaka's current fighting style after training with Rhea Ross, reflecting her new body's capabilities. Without taking a single breath, Ayaka slammed her spear to the next bison. A magic circle appeared on her hand after killing 2 more bison as she retreated a few steps. Scarlet explosion. Boom. A flash of red light followed by an explosion appeared in the midst of bison rank. It killed another 5 bison in the process and blasted a few of them toward Ayaka. Looking at the flying bison, Ayaka made another magic before a net of fire appeared a bit farther from her. The bison that were charging at her quickly changed their direction and went around the net, but the ones that were flying had no such luck. The net caught 5 flying bison. As expected, the weight of the bison pushed and stretched the net toward Ayaka. Luckily, she had predicted this would happen and created a net a bit farther from her. She looked to the fire net that started cooking the bison raw. It was at this time a bison arrived at her right after avoiding the net. However, there was no trace of surprise on her face. In fact, no sign of her flinching in front of this bison. Because she knew, bam, a loud sound produced by a kick right on the bison's body was heard. Although Ayaka couldn't see it because of the bison, her instinct could sense there was another presence behind the bison. And that presence was none other than Kai. Kai kicked the bison toward the fire nest, hoping for it to roast another one. He glanced at Ayaka's before another bison caught in his scope of vision. Unlike the usual time, Kai didn't shout at her to inform her about the bison. Instead, he trusted her and turned around as he struck another incoming bison from his direction. Ayaka had no time to thank him as she noticed the presence from her left. She spun around while swinging her spear again toward the bison, killing the bison in one single blow. It would seem that her power slowly became frightening, Kai thought. Even with his strength, he couldn't shatter the horn like her unless he used the heavy 2-handed sword that he used in Cuba's battle. He could only aim at their weak point if he wanted to kill them in a single blow by using his speed and strength. Happy with improvement, Kai nodded and searched for another opponent. Meanwhile, Ayaka took a note on the state of this battle. She had killed 17 bison from the start, while Kai had killed 8. It would seem Kai was still superior in terms of close combat, because she used her fire magic to kill 13 out of those 17 bison, while Kai killed those 8 with only his strength. Even so, Ayaka shook that thought off in an instant. Michelle and Tasha should have finished killing those in their side, while there were still 13 bison in their side. She wanted to see how many more bison she and Kai could kill without their help. Unfortunately, when another 2 bison charged at her, she realized that her spear didn't have enough length to reach both bison in a single swing. Her quick thinking made her create a magic circle on her hand to shoot a few firebirds while she killed the other one with her spear. It was at this time a female's voice resounded on her ears. Lightning Piercer. An arrow pierced the wall of fire she made earlier and pierced the bison's head. This was Tasha's cover fire to let her focus on the bison in front of her. This didn't make her sad. Instead, she smiled and clenched her spear tightly before killing another bison with her spear's weight. The magic circle that's supposed to lose its purpose still shot out 10 firebirds. However, their aim wasn't the dying bison. Instead, the firebirds flew past the bison and hit the 2 bison behind it. Boom, boom. The fate of these 2 bison was the same as those who were hit by firebirds earlier. Ayaka paid no heed to them and killed the rest of the bison with Tasha's assistance. It only took them a minute to kill another 4 bison, albeit when they saw Kai and Michelle they already finished their task and was waiting for them. Kai smiled at Ayaka while Michelle was looking at her mysteriously. Ayaka looked at her hand instead of them. She thought, "This is my current power. Finally I can see his back." She closed her eyes, imagining the scene that she saw previously. It was like a dark world where she constantly chased after Kai. Sadly, Kai left her on the dust no matter how hard she trained. Only after receiving this power, she could finally see his back. She hoped to grab his back when she succeeded in mastering this new power. "Oi, what are you doing?" Kai's voice echoed in her ears as she abruptly opened her eyes. "Ah yes," Ayaka replied and began walking toward him and the others. "How is your condition?" "I feel a great leap on your power and fighting style," Kai asked with a smile. "Yes, I am fine. There is nothing wrong with my body or instinct when I killed them or used my power. As for my fighting style, I should thank Professor Ria for this, probably." Ayaka was grateful to Ria Ross, but deep inside, she hesitated whether she was really thankful after that training. Kai only smiled as he knew what she felt. He decided to change the topic. "All right, we should clear this up and go home." "Yes," all of them shouted in unison. This scene astonished Rick in the helicopter. He could see it clearly from the sky how 50 C-rank bison died in their hands within a few minutes. In fact, it barely took them 15 minutes to clear them up. "Amazing," Rick exclaimed. "This is my first time seeing a group like this. They only have 4 people, but their firepower might be greater than all the top 100 groups I had served before. Yeah, they are really different from the norm," Evan commented with a smile. He thought with the addition of the new Ayaka, their group was really full of freaks. 2 S-rank magicians and 3 zodiacs. This alone would shift the balance of power among the top 100 groups. He leaned back on his seat while muttering, "I hope there is no group that will challenge us in a group battle." "Well, I am sure you heard this too, right?" Of course, the "you" on his mouth was none other than Kai, albeit the latter only smiled because he never had a plan in accepting that as long as they didn't push their limit. "Old man Rick, why don't you land around their area, and we can go home after this?" Evan said nonchalantly. "Haha, sure. It seems I can tell this story to my daughter," Rick laughed before landing the helicopter. Chapter 142. Raid Mission. After clearing their bodies, Kai and the others flew back home. Rick was grinning the entire time, confusing them, except Kai, who heard how he wanted to boast about this to his daughter. He didn't say anything about it, though. On their way home, "Say, Kai, what are you going to do after this? We wouldn't have any more missions until the new year, so are you going to stay in our usual place or research the sound levitation?" Michelle asked while looking outside the window. Before Kai could answer, Tasha said, "I will be staying in room 420. I don't know why, but I can concentrate more there." "Isn't it usually reverse?" Michelle couldn't help but comment. "Usually, one couldn't concentrate when they were around many people, especially when they were talking and disturbing her concentration. That's why I said, I don't know. Besides, I can ask Kai to give me some music to change my brainwave to alpha state. Tasha shrugged. Kai shook his head helplessly. Alpha state brainwave meant to be a relaxed focus state where they usually had the most concentration. If it was compared to the people on a sport, it was the same as someone saying they were in the zone. Then I can stay there too. I don't have anything to do anyway, and I can completely isolate myself with the sound insulation room. Kai shrugged. I will come every other day to do some research on fighting video to polish my style. Well, I want to have some time to do some physical training since my family is going to help me with that. Ayaka also answered the question, even though Michelle only planned to ask Kai. I don't have anything to do, so I will drop by every day. I hate my house anyway since they are pretty strict on me. Evan also joined the conversation. Kai looked at them for a few seconds, wondering whether he should let them know about the raid mission. In the end, he only asked Michelle, "Do you know about the raid mission that will happen once a year?" Kai's question made Michelle and Evan dumbfounded, not expecting Kai to ask such questions. Michelle had a puzzled look on her face as she asked slowly, "Why do you know about the raid mission?" "From the student council," Kai answered honestly. Michelle fell into silence, and this silence made Tasha ask, "What is this raid mission?" Looking at Michelle's troubled expression, Evan decided to answer that question. Raid mission is a mission that will only happen once a year. Only the top 100 groups will participate in this mission, as it will be a joint event between Magic Academy, Military Academy, and the Army. The government makes this mission because they want the top 100 groups to become an elite amongst the elites. They expect us to learn under the professional about their tactics and other things. Top 100 groups. Ayaka narrowed her eyes because he found this one to be strange. It's normal for you to have some suspicion. The biggest reason why it's only for the top 100 groups is because of the difficulty. Last year, we needed to deal with a war bigger than the one we had in Cuba, around twice as big if I am not wrong. Of course, there were many intelligent magical beasts, which caused many casualties on our side, and I needed to heal them. Evan let out a long sigh as he remembered how he was covered in blood for a full day because of the number of casualties. After hearing that much explanation, Michelle took over. "We don't know about this year's target, and I might be asking about it later to my grandfather, but the time is random, so you need to be prepared. Of course, I also participated in last year's mission, since I was an S-rank magician even though I didn't have a group. As for this year, I would surely be counted as a part of the Lion group. I am still surprised to hear that question from Kai though. Actually, I already know about the mission." Kai made a weird smile as he informed them. Their explanation made him decide to inform them, because there was no point in hiding it. In fact, if they knew and had more time to prepare, it would be better. This statement stunned Evan and Michelle, wondering what kind of mission they would have this year. Surprisingly, Evan was the one who asked instead of Michelle. "Kai, what is the mission this time?" I'm going to be covered with blood again this year. It's a raid on an underground nest, hosting many insects, but ants took the most population there." Kai shrugged. Michelle gulped down and asked, "I am wondering." "No, I am convinced that my grandfather has stretched his hand on this matter, right? I don't know what to answer. He indeed has a connection to this matter, but it's not as simple as stretching his hand." Kai made a troubled look, wondering if he should explain it or wait for Nathan. "What do you mean?" Michelle gritted her teeth, as she knew this matter wasn't simple. He is going to be the one in charge of this operation, or so the information says. Kai let out a long sigh. It seems that old man has lived long enough. "Should I send him to the afterworld?" Michelle clasped her hands in anger. "Don't say that. Although he wants a mission like the previous one in Cuba, he is taking charge of this operation himself, showing us how he wants to be responsible for this," Kai said with a gentle smile. He knew that this was the only way for Kai to be recognized by many people despite the risk of this mission. And the end goal of this operation would be becoming famous and having a good rank in the military faster than anyone could. If he reached a high enough level, he could stay at home while enjoying the time with his family like Nathan. "I know that, but this is overboard." Michelle had a difficulty to let go of this matter in her heart. "Oh, right. I also need to visit my teacher after the new year." Kai let out a long sigh. Every time he mentioned his teacher, the terrible memories of the past resurfaced in his mind. "By the way, do you know about the timing? After the new year, it seems they want to weaken the ants first with the winter. although it might not be very effective, considering they are magical beasts now. Indeed. It's still plenty, though. Michelle nodded while pondering over a matter. Still, seeing your teacher first before going for a raid mission, I am wondering if this is another scheme or just a coincidence. Kai also wished for the answer, but it shouldn't be related since his teacher wanted him to go there badly. If they were connected, it would be different. Anyway, this is what the student council said to me. Kai began explaining what happened when he filled the form for the helicopter. All of them listened to him attentively, not leaving any single detail behind. It took him a few minutes to explain everything before everyone's communication device rang at the same time. Seeing how they got the notification at the same time made them exchange looks with each other for a few seconds before checking the message. Raid mission. Underground Nest, Canada. General in charge. Nathan Graham mission. Cooperate with the Army and military school to conquer this underground nest. The details will be sent later. Michelle sighed after seeing her grandfather's name. Highs, this new year is going to be a special new year. Evan was also disappointed with this as he didn't like participating in this big-scale battle. What can we do now other than preparing? Kai shrugged as he was already resigned to his fate. On the other hand, only Ayaka had a certain determination. She was eager to use this new prowess to help Kai, but remembered what Rhea Ross said and quickly shook off the thought. She thought, I can't be impatient, I need to be careful. As if he didn't notice Ayaka's change of expression, he said, I'm going to my teacher's house after the new year, so who wants to come with me? Ayaka must come though. I will follow you, Tasha said while Michelle nodded in agreement. I am curious about the genius who created the Zodiac power, but I think I will pass. I have another plan on that day. Evan shook his head. Sure, all of you then. Somehow I can see what she would say when I come. Kai shook his head and looked down. Kai's depressed look made Michelle a bit sad, so she decided to change the topic to liven up the mood. Kai, how about a date tomorrow? There is nothing we need to do after this, so we can have some relaxing time once in a while. Kai looked up and locked into her eyes for a few seconds before nodding. Yeah, you are right. I'm the second then. Tasha rolled her eyes away while crossing her arms. Ayaka didn't say anything, but she kept glancing at him, hoping for the same thing. On the other hand, Evan whispered to him, Kai, I have meant to ask you this, but how many women are you going to have? I don't know though. I really don't want too many. Kai sighed. How about you? I don't have attack ability, so if I have too many and those women bullied me, I would be in a bad spot. I will only have one to protect myself, Evan said realistically. Kai and Evan locked into each other's eyes for a few seconds before shrugging. Chapter 133. Nathan's appearance. After returning to the school, Kai and the others bid their goodbye to Rick before making their way to Sanai. Kai did all the reports and submitted it to her within an hour, so they could go home before night came. He also needed to prepare for tomorrow for the next 3 days. Luckily, there was much to do for the rest of the year, so he didn't mind having fun for 3 days straight before continuing his research. Kai even told Evan and Sanai he couldn't come to this room after classes. Evan only shrugged his shoulder as a response, while Sanai clicked her tongue in annoyance. Michelle, of course, already prepared herself for today. She wore a smooth white sweater with a black skirt to show the contrast. Let's go. Michelle smiled. I need to change my clothes first. Kai looked at his school uniform and said, It's fine, we can get one on our date. Michelle said nonchalantly, thinking it wasn't a big deal to buy clothes just for a day. Looking at her smile, Kai somehow couldn't reject her and nod his head. Sure. Then, they began walking to enjoy the rest of the day, and the place they first visited was none other than a clothing shop. It was only for Kai to change his uniform though, as they left the shop as soon as he had changed. Then they went to a restaurant to discuss what they were going to do today, albeit the talk became derailed after a while. Kai, what is he planning about the raid mission? Does he want you to take command again? Michelle asked while leaning on the chair. Probably. I can picture a few of my tasks already, but only Sir Nathan can confirm which tasks I will do. Kai paused for a moment before saying, There is one task that I absolutely need to do, and that is… Michelle narrowed her eyes. To make the map for this underground nest, it would seem that the nest itself is very big to the point the scout couldn't explore everything. In that case, I need to make a map so we can see the extent of their nest. I just hope that this cave is not too big. Kai sighed. Can you even draw? Michelle looked at him dumbfoundedly before making a weird smile. Number. If it's some bad sketch, I can, since my drawing isn't really that bad. As long as they can differentiate the depth and such, it's not a problem, I guess. Kai shrugged while sipping his iced tea. True enough. But the problem is still their number. How many lives do the nest host there? Michelle asked. I think it won't be too much of a problem if we are not too deep, because we can secure the tunnel. Although the sound would echo like crazy, I wouldn't let such a thing pass me again, Kai said with a serious expression. He couldn't help but recall the time where he missed a single centipede in the training session with Ayaka. Although one of the reasons for that blunder was because there should be no underground creature, making him lower his guard from underground, it could still be considered as his mistake. There was only a serious expression on Michelle. She stayed silent because Kai had told them about that, and she was happy because it was only in a simulation room, not the real world. She gave Kai a minute to think about it. He would be like this when he wasn't satisfied with his efforts, so rather than telling him it wasn't his fault, she chose to wait. Kai noticed that he had thought for a few minutes and left Michelle in suspense. He made a weird smile as he said, I'm sorry, it's fine. You can even think more anyway, and I will surely wait for you. Michelle placed her hands on the table while supporting Bo's cheeks, looking at him with a big smile. Besides, your ability is really going to be useful in this mission. No, I can say that your ability is very useful in general. I am even scared that someone might target you. Haha, I can't say anything about that. Kai rolled his eyes away, precisely knowing what her meaning was. In fact, not all the people that attacked his family targeted his sister, Tasha. There were some who were after his ability and wanted to train him as a spy. Luckily, Ria Ross's training was proven to be effective. Anyway, we shouldn't talk about this on our date. Let's talk about other things. Michelle grinned. Kai shook his head helplessly. He couldn't win against this girl, yeah. The next day passed like yesterday, but with Tasha, not Michelle. However, he was kind of amused when he looked at Tasha. They might come to a similar place, but their taste was different. He realized that they might be similar but not the same. The date went smoothly like yesterday, shopping, talking, and having some fun while strolling around. In fact, Tasha preferred walking around and chatting with him to watching movies. There was only a single reason he didn't like watching movies. They would need to focus on the movie instead of their partner, and this was particularly what Tasha hated. On the other hand, when he was with Ayaka, the latter asked more personal questions, though it ended up being the talk about her current fighting style. Kai gave some advice about her current fighting style according to his observation. He felt that Ayaka relied on her spear too much and neglected the speed from wildebeest blood, albeit Ayaka said she was fine because Ria Ross already gave some advice on them. Her current fighting style was only to let her get accustomed to her current body abilities. After all, Ayaka was slow previously, and to ask her to jump around at a fast speed was impossible. It might even become her weakness if she did it recklessly. She asked Kai to wait for her until the new year, since she would start using her new fighting style that incorporated her speed, power, and magic. Kai nodded and said she could take her time. In the end, they were too invested in talking, and they spent almost the whole day talking in a restaurant. Kai laughed at that part. Ayaka also didn't regret today's date. At the very least, she learned many things about herself and him. After 3 days, Kai could finally show up again. Albeit Sanaya greeted him with annoyance, saying normies and such, before complaining about their 8-year gap, but didn't have a man. Yet, she even said that there was a conspiracy about this, especially when the males had less population than females. Kai and the others were speechless to the point they gave her alcohol to make her drunk. At first, Sanai refused like a proper teacher before finally falling into temptation. It was at this time, someone opened the door and came inside. All the people in the room thought it was a teacher or something along the line to check on them. Their faces began to peel because they had stepped on a landmine, or at least that was what they thought. Kai was sweating profusely as he sat weakly on his couch, but he let out a long breath of relief upon finding who the person was. He had heard the footsteps outside, but never expected that it would come to their room. It was normal for him to think like that, after hearing so many footsteps that passed their room for a few months, and no one entered. Michelle's body shook while trying hard to wipe the sweat on her forehead. She exclaimed out loud, "Grandfather!" They thought if a teacher came in, they would be doomed, especially Sanae. Sanai might get penalized, and her teacher qualification might get revoked, while they who fed her alcohol might get some lighter punishment. Who would ever think that the person in front of them would be the general in charge of the raid mission? Michelle's grandfather. Even Kai couldn't differentiate who the person was unless they spoke and recognized his voice. Grandfather, what are you doing here? No. Let me hit you first. Michelle corrected herself. My cute granddaughter. I know that your grandfather likes to joke around, but you still shouldn't say you want to hit your grandfather, you know. Nathan looked down with a sad look, appearing like he had been wronged. Sadly, the only thing he got was Michelle's clicking tongue. In his vision, Michelle crossed her arms while staring at him with annoyance. Sir, you haven't explained the reason for you being here. Looking at her expression, Nathan knew he couldn't play a little more. He straightened his back, closed his eyes, and raised his left hand to his mouth like he was going to be serious. Cough. I have 2 reasons to come here. First of all, Kai, happy birthday to you. I hope you can give me a great grandchild as soon as possible. Kai wanted to thank her, but he lost his motivation after hearing the second sentence. He took a deep breath and acted as if he didn't hear that before smiling at Nathan. Yes, thanks. Then, what is the second reason? Michelle narrowed her eyes. I informed you 2 weeks ago, right? Nathan looked into her eyes with a playful smile. Informed me 2 weeks ago. Her eyebrows twitched as she thought Nathan was playing with her before Kai suddenly recalled the memory of 2 years ago. He asked, Is this about the raid mission? As expected of my grandson-in-law. That's right, I want to talk about the raid mission, the extermination of underground nest in Canada. Nathan nodded before his expression turned serious. Chapter 144. Talk about raid mission. That's right, I want to talk about the raid mission. The aura from his body turned into something else, followed by his expression. Kai looked into Nathan's eyes for a few seconds before stretching his hand toward an empty couch. How about you sit first, sir? It was an empty couch. No one used before because Michelle or Tasha would sit around him and left that one empty. Knowing that this would lead to a lengthy conversation, Nathan walked toward the empty couch and sat down. My lovely granddaughter, how about making me tea or something? Michelle ignored him and looked away. Tasha obviously had no such intention either, while Ayaka didn't know what to do. On one hand, his advice was really helpful. By directing Ayaka to Ria Ross, it gave her the power to stabilize their entire group. On the other hand, the advice almost took her life in the process. Her fingers flinched as she took a step backward before stepping out of this matter. If Michelle didn't even want to make him something, why should she? It wasn't like she wanted his attention. Nathan shrugged his shoulder to brush away this simple matter, before looking at Kai with a serious expression. So, what are we going to talk about anyway? How about you tell me, what do you know about the mission first, and what do you want to achieve? Kai paused for a moment before telling him the talk with Michelle about the mission, all the things he might do if he was there, and their roles. Listening to his strategic thinking made Nathan smile, not because of other things. He liked it because he felt like talking with a veteran. It's a good thing to know that you have understood your mission. Nathan nodded before pausing for a few seconds. I want to clarify a few things first with you. First is your role in this battle. I want you to be the strategist in this raid. A strategist. Does Sir want me to have the same role as the one I have in the Cuba War? I mean, the original one, not the emergency one. Kai was startled as he stumbled on his words. Yeah, I want you to make the plan for this raid after making the rough sketch of the underground map. Don't worry, I will have someone to draw it better after your rough sketch. However, I want you to understand that we are fighting in a complicated area, Nathan answered, followed by a warning. I know. This is a complicated terrain for us. If we are pushing too deep, we might get surrounded by many creatures. In other words, I need to set up their pace, area clearance, and a few things. We can't be too fast, but we can't be too slow either. It's a complicated plan indeed. Kai looked down, weighing all the things he needed to consider. Nathan closed his eyes and smiled. This person was a really talented one, he said inwardly. No wonder Ria Ross chose him as her student. He has a strong will to survive, can adapt easily, has a talent in both fighting and planning, and, more importantly, his unique hearing and magic. Is this what they mean by talents are attracting each other? He also has my granddaughter, S-rank stepsister, Zodiac girlfriend, and another zodiac as his friend. Thinking at this point, he felt there was no need to worry about the future. Nathan smiled and said, "Yeah, you need to consider all of them before making your perfect plan. Still, it should be better to split the army into a small 50-people group to launch such a large-scale invasion, making a few anchor points so the front lines could retreat to a few places in case they are attacked by many magical beasts. Besides, we can make them change positions and such depending on the frontline situation." Kai fell into deep thought. Nathan added, "You also need to consider the radio. We can't use the radio there to avoid the magical beasts from detecting us. Of course, if we make a huge scene, they would also notice us nonetheless. Yeah, that's why the timing is important. If we are too fast, the vanguard might not be able to hold the magical beast's influx. Alright, there is no point in thinking about it now. You have 2 months for this, so take your time. I will send you the map that our scouts made so that you can create a little plan based on that." Nathan nodded. "Understood. Well, no need to think that deeply. Although you are the strategist, there are a few talented generals and me to observe your plan. Then we can discuss it if we feel the detail is somewhat lacking. After all, it's nice to have more pairs of eyes and brains for this kind of big operation," Nathan assured him with a gentle smile. "Yes, I appreciate the gesture, but do you think all the people there will hear me out? After all, I'm only a student. Prince Rupert and Cuba. Those 2 places have become your trademark and huge record in your career. Of course, the government also wants to see what kind of monster will grow by giving you more opportunities like this. In fact, when I suggest to them about your position, no one raises a single complaint." Nathan smirked, recalling the matter a few months ago. "Really?" Kai looked at him, still a bit doubtful. "Yeah, besides, I have known a few people there, so there should be no complaints from them. I can ask them to beat those who complain too, by the way." Nathan grinned. "I will try my best about this." Kai nodded before glancing at Michelle and the others. "What about the others? If you are talking about your lion group, they are going to move with you. Even though you are our strategist, there should be no problem with you moving around while I am watching the fort. Now that I think about it, you also need to see the qualities of the top 100 groups from the Military Academy and Magic Academy. After all, we are making a big raid with 6,000 people in it." Nathan nodded. "Yeah, there should be many tunnels underground, and all of them are important. If the magical beasts destroy them and retake the tunnel, it will be dangerous for the whole situation, especially for the middle group, or the back one that is closer to the entrance. If the entrance is blocked, then the people inside will be surrounded." Kai sighed, thinking it would be a chore. "Don't worry, we can have 500 people as our reserve to prevent that from happening. I'm sure the reserve can move before the people get surrounded," Nathan said nonchalantly. "Yes, I will consider them all before presenting the idea to teacher. After teacher acknowledges the plan, I will explain it to the army." Kai paused for a second and said, "We are going to fight with bugs, so I hope none of you have a fear against them, right?" Nathan narrowed his eyes, looking at everyone's expression, including Shirotsuka Sanae. "Sir Nathan, why do you look at me? Don't tell me." Sanae's face turned pale. "You are their teacher, of course. You need to go." Nathan nodded while staring at her with an eye that didn't accept rejection. "Besides, all teachers in top groups will come as well. So you have friends," Sanae wanted to say. "I just want to chill in the safe area." "Oh, right. Your friend, Mano Yuki, will also participate in this, so I don't think you have an excuse not to. Besides, I believe she will invite you soon." Nathan shrugged like he just won the conversation. "Well, if you say it like that, I can only go along with the mission. And since Sir Nathan is the one leading it, the mission shouldn't be too dangerous despite having a greater difficulty." Sanae thought for a moment and said, "You can't say that. Although I am taking command of this mission, it's not solely because of Kai. The mission itself has a very high difficulty. Even 1,000 of the soldiers there are from my Graham family. I trust them more than the normal soldiers from the military. I hope you know the importance of this mission." Nathan narrowed his eyes. Sanae looked down for a minute, weighing something in her mind before looking up with a serious expression. "Yes, sir. Besides, Kai is the strategist of this mission. After finishing the mission, the compensation is great. You know, I believe you can even buy 1 year's worth of wine," Nathan teased her. I know that I love wine, but I think more rationally when it comes to a high difficulty mission like this. The reason I accepted the previous mission in Cuba was because I thought it wasn't that hard. If I knew about the intelligence beasts, I might think it over. Sinai scratched her cheek, wondering if her reputation was already so bad in this new place. Kai and the others chuckled. All right, that's all for me. An old man like me shouldn't bother you. You have time until the end of January, where we will start our raid, and don't forget to go to your teacher before it, because she is requesting you. You can even ask her about the plan, to be honest. Nathan rose from his seat before starting to walk toward the door. Kai nodded and bowed to Nathan. Yes, sir. Nathan nodded and left the room. Chapter 145, On the Way Ding. We are departing in 5 minutes. Please sit down on your seat to prevent tripping over when the train starts accelerating. A train attendant came over and said. Before turning around and informed the others, Kai looked out the window and watched many people outside, wandering around. We are going to arrive in 3 hours by train, then take a taxi for 30 minutes before we can arrive at Professor Ria's house, Michelle said while looking at the pamphlet about the train. Kai turned his head to the side and nodded at Michelle before glancing over the person in his front and diagonally. Well, this might be the first time I meet such a person. I never see her and know about her, so I am a little curious. Tasha, in his front, said with a smile, wondering what kind of person that could instill a deep fear inside Kai. On the other hand, Ayaka was playing with her hands, specifically her nails. It was easy enough to learn how bothered she was with this. Even so, she was still going to visit her, because Kai asked them, "Don't put your hope too high. She is psycho." After replying to Tasha, he turned around and watched the people outside. Michelle and Tasha understood how he actually didn't want to meet her. In fact, if she didn't threaten him, it might be a few more years before he could meet her face to face. After all, texting her or chatting on call was different from meeting face to face. That's right. It had been almost 2 months since Nathan visited him. December came in an instant. It would seem that Nathan was truly busy with the preparation. Kai's birthday was supposed to be on 2nd December, but Nathan visited him before that and even congratulated him. When his birthday came, there wasn't a single word from Nathan. Even Michelle's message had no reply. At first, the way he congratulated Kai was confusing, but they could somehow understand it after learning his situation. Kai asked Michelle's father, Michael, to come to his house for his birthday. Unfortunately, he only congratulated him on a message and said he couldn't. Only Michelle and the others could come to his birthday. Surprisingly, Evan also celebrated it together, saying he just didn't have a good time at home. It couldn't be said as party since they only ate some home cooking and then went their separate ways. After the birthday, there was nothing important in particular. Ayaka had good progress in her new fighting style. It would seem that in close combat alone, she could already defeat Becca completely. She still had many areas for improvement, but the general issue had been solved, and she could balance both speed and power. Her father and mother also asked her for sparring to see her power. At first, they never expected that Ayaka decided to become a Zodiac. They were clueless about it. When Ayaka said it was a fusion between human blood and magical beast blood, their expression distorted, having many thoughts about this. However, it was easily solved when Ayaka mentioned Kai's Zodiac power and identity as the first Zodiac ever created. They couldn't help but feel relieved that Kai was actually the first. The sole reason was because they were unsure whether their only daughter had become a monster or not. In the end, they decided to leave it to Kai after seeing how attached their daughter was to Kai. Besides, Kai wasn't actually against the idea. Of course, the sparring was still going on. They fought a few times, but, as expected from an expert like them, even though Ayaka had superior physical abilities, they could easily pick up any flaws in her fighting style. This made Ayaka fired up and improve by leaps and bounds. As a parent, they were certainly happy with this, and tried to spend more time with her before eventually fighting her with magic. In the end, they said if she had enough experience, perfected her fighting style, tactics, and other things, she would easily surpass them, and even her grandfather. Kudo Yoshihiro, Ayaka's father, wanted to say it would be soon. Unfortunately, he wished to see her aim even further, so he refrained himself especially from saying how proud he was. He didn't want Ayaka to be proud of this, and kept having the need to improve. He kept grinning though whenever he talked about it with Kudochio, his wife. On the other hand, Tasha and Kai didn't have anything to do other than making a few plans for this raid mission. Tasha's was Kai's last trump card, so she needed to be present in this planning session to let her know about her role. Tasha was fine with it and quickly put down her research. She listened to Kai and gave a few suggestions based on the plans, creating a better plan than they expected. They continued brainstorming the ideas while asking Shirotsuka Sanae for inputs. She was astonished to see the high-level plan they were asking, especially when the requirement of timing and other things. It was hard to pull this plan off without coordination from each group, but it would seem they would succeed. The only question she had in mind was how to explain this complicated plan by using a simple command. This was the homework that Sanae gave to them. Kai and Tasha could understand that if they used a complicated explanation, there might be some misunderstanding in the execution, so they started working in that area. Evan didn't have any change. He was always busy with his computer while Kai and the others didn't want to disturb him. Meanwhile, Michelle once flew back home to ask her grandfather for more explanation about the raid mission. Unfortunately, she couldn't find her grandfather, and her two uncles couldn't help her much with it. She ended up going to Michael, but no avail. The latter kept saying he didn't know anything, and asked her to wait until the official order. Michelle kept complaining out of frustration and blaming Nathan and Michael the whole time. She just wanted to play her part as the girl of the strategist of this mission. Unfortunately, she couldn't help with anything Kai said. It was fine, but she still blamed herself. In the end, Michelle did some practice with her shadow again, forgetting about this problem. And before long, the new year finally arrived. They celebrated the new year with their family, except Michelle, who was left behind by her family because of this reason. Kai asked her to celebrate it with his family instead, and she agreed. His mother was thrilled with this and had a great time with Michelle and Tasha. 2 weeks after the new year, Kai needed to visit his teacher. Reluctant as he may, he could only drag his ass over because there was no telling what kind of absurd thing she would do in case he didn't come. Knowing Ria Ross's personality, it would only be a matter of time to blow the matter up. Kai let out a long sigh while watching the people outside. He felt a slight push to the back as the train started moving. The scenery started to move as the train left the station. Kai, your teacher wants to give you something, right? What do you think about it? What kind of item does she want to give you? Michelle asked while glancing at him, observing his expression. I don't know. Knowing her personality, there are unlimited possibilities to be considered. Kai shrugged. Really? Maybe she wants to give you the vibration sword. After perfecting the design, she should be able to give the perfect vibration sword for you, Michelle said with a smile. That's good then. With the vibration sword, I would have higher confidence in this raid mission. Besides, asking her some questions about the plan will also give us a greater chance of survival. Kai nodded in agreement. Still, do you think it's really only vibration sword? I mean, she gave it to me a few months ago so I could deliver it to you. If this time she only has a vibration sword, why doesn't she give it to me like the previous time? Michelle looked up while crossing her arms, thinking of the real reason. Oh right, she said he would regret it if he doesn't come. I wonder what kind of item she will give to make her say that. Tasha was also curious. When I stayed at Professor's place, she often smiled weirdly when talking about you. Maybe it's related to that, Ayaka said while recalling the scene back then. Kai's sweat dropped while staring at her with a dumbfounded face. Don't tell a scary story. It's not a scary story though, Ayaka muttered, but understood where he was coming from. 3 hours later, they arrived and quickly searched for a taxi. After half an hour, Kai arrived at the rundown house Ayaka visited a few months ago. In fact, he received her address from Ayaka, not her. Although he was a bit reluctant, he gritted his teeth and opened the taxi door. The others followed him from behind as he walked toward the house's bell and pressed the button. Surprisingly, unlike Ayaka's case, it only took her a second to open the door. Clack. A woman opened the door with a happy expression. This was the same woman that Ayaka met a few months ago. But this time, she had a brighter expression. She made a little smile and put her hands inside the white laboratory robe's pockets and said, Yo, my beloved student, you have finally come. Chapter 146, Vibration Sword. Yo, my beloved student, you have finally come. Seeing the familiar face that had instilled the trauma into him, Kai's face distorted a little bit. With a normal expression, Ria Ross pushed the door wider and waited until Kai regained his calm before saying, Come on, you brat. I didn't teach you to have that kind of expression. Kai took a deep breath before he said with difficulty, "Nice to meet you again, teacher. It's been a few years. A few years. It's been 10 years, 6 months, 15 days, and 23 minutes. Ria Ross snorted. By the way, the timing is when I last saw you at the airport a decade ago. You even know the exact time. Kai sweated profusely, trying hard to control his calm expression. Haha, she laughed out loud before taking a look at Michelle and the others. You even bring the Shadow Princess, Space Girl, and Little Aries, Space Girl. Tasha opened her mouth in surprise, not knowing where the nickname came from. Little Aries. Ayaka twitched a little bit, as she had been calling her with that name after finishing the operation. Meanwhile, Michelle didn't have a change of expression because many people in school called her that. Anyway, come in first. After pushing the door wide open, Ria Ross walked inside while waving her hand to ask them to come. Kai took the first step inside, following Ria Ross to her study room, where Ayaka asked her to make her a zodiac. Welcome to my house, and also, happy birthday. Ria sat down on her chair as she greeted them once again. As you have seen, this is my study room. Kai thought for a moment and said, "Why do you call me here?" Haha, why do you ask that question? Do you want to go back now? Ria placed her hand on the table before supporting her chin. No. Kai glanced left and right, not knowing what to answer. He took a deep breath and looked at her with a serious expression. Teacher isn't someone who suddenly asked me like that. I think teacher has something important and wants me to see it. Michelle and the others didn't let out a single sound and watched how their conversation unfolded. Only Michelle knew that Kai actually overcame his trauma a few years ago because he knew everything she did would consider him first. If not, she already continued the Zodiac project instead of giving it to the government. However, Kai didn't act with confidence because no matter what he did, Ria always outsmarted him. No one would be happy when they always lost unless they were a masochist. You are right. I have a few things to tell, just like the reason you come here. Ria Ross proved Michelle's thought once again. Let's see. You are coming here first is for that girl, Little Aries. The second reason would be the upcoming raid mission in Canada. The third is to fight me again. Everything except the third reason is right. Kai closed his eyes and shook his head helplessly. Ha ha ha. I let my intentions slip. Ria Ross fixed her grey hair while grinning. You are purposely letting it slip, Haiz. This is my fault to teach you not to leave small details. You are picking it on me right now. Ria sighed in defeat. Teacher, we have enough of your jokes. Kai scratched his cheek, putting a weird smile. Fine. Ria shrugged before turning around and reaching a long briefcase behind her seat. She laid the case on top of her table before opening it. 4 of them were amazed as soon as they found out the thing inside the case. It was a pair of swords they saw a few months ago, the black handle with a few white straps to soften the contact with the hands. The sword had 2 colors, black as the base color and a green pattern like Kai's magic circle. One spot stood out the most. Right above the handle was a spherical metal. It looked like a glass made of metal while the inside was empty. Ria looked at the swords first before explaining. I have remodeled according to your problem. Thanks to the concept of Little Aries, I only need to search for a metal that wouldn't break because of the vibration. It's teacher's specialty. Kai nodded with a smile. Specialty. Ayaka was the most curious one about this. She had stayed inside this house but knew nothing about it. Teacher, what kind of training do you actually give? Kai furrowed his eyebrows, not expecting Ayaka not to know Ria's magic. I only taught her martial arts to refine her fighting style. I don't use my magic at all. She shrugged. Ayaka looked down, ashamed, and commented, Professor Ria, you don't need to mind talking about me. You can just say I am too weak for you to use your magic. You don't even use your hand. Kai stared at Ayaka for a few seconds, knowing how she felt. In fact, he could only make her use her hand after 4 months of continuous fighting. Kai explained. She is a rank earth magician. However, she somehow managed to evolve her magic like Michelle's dark magic into shadow magic. So, her magic now is metal magic. In fact, Michelle got the inspiration of shadow magic from her. Yeah, it was after you became a Zodiac. I thought about getting stronger and somehow stumbled at her place. Michelle nodded. Ayaka was astonished to hear this, while Ria Ross looked annoyed. Enough about that talk. Take a look at the body of the sword first. I have combined a few metals and made it durable to work under high vibration. It's not really hard to make this because there is already a record of this from the previous era. The problem would be this spherical thing that will hold your vibration. She pointed at the spherical spot. Kai and the others observed the spot. How much vibration can this take on? I used the supersonic blade video as my reference. The wave can vibrate the blade 20,000 to 40,000 times per second. It's only used in bakeries though. This one can handle 100,000 to 150,000 vibrations per second. The sphere was very brittle previously and kept breaking. It only stopped breaking after I changed the metal into the hardest one that I could synthesize. Kai nodded before taking out the sword from the case. Can I test it, teacher? Sure. Just get a bit farther away, since this is a double-edged weapon. Ria Ross nodded before pointing at an empty space in the corner. You can try to swing it around in that place. Kai glanced at the empty spot, nodded, and walked there. He made a few swings and said his experience. The weight is the same as my previous sword, and the length is also similar. The sphere is disturbing me a little, but there should be no problem in the performance. I just need some little adjustment. Sure. There should be no problem with the design. How about you activate the vibration? Kai nodded and created a magic circle that enveloped the sphere. This spherical magic circle was to reflect the sound completely, so it would keep crashing to the metal and let the sword vibrate. Kai waited for a while to let the sword vibrate. Although he couldn't pinpoint it, it looked like the sword was vibrating 100,000 times per second. There wasn't a change in the sword's appearance because it vibrated at speed high enough to be not visible with naked eyes. Cut this one. Ria threw a wooden log at him. Without hesitating, Kai slashed the wooden log. Surprisingly, it had no resistance from the sword as it was sliced into two by his sword. Ria didn't stop there. She quickly grabbed a piece of metal and threw it. This one next. Kai sliced the metal once again. Clang. Surprisingly, a metal clicking sound echoed across the entire room, even though the metal was sliced into two. How is it, Kai? There is a resistance from the metal for a split second and takes away a portion of the vibration. As expected. This is why we separate fantasy and science. Ria let out a long sigh. Yeah, it can coexist, but it wouldn't be the same as our expectation. Kai nodded. Michelle and the others were confused by their conversation, but kept their silence until Ria explained it. There are a few problems in this vibration magic. The first problem will be science itself. People tend to think it will be an overpowered weapon. Yet, in reality, we need the material that can stand the vibration. And another one is the resistance he felt earlier. He will need to keep pumping the sound to create more vibration. In other words, the fantasy story has been broken by this science. The second problem is about the design. It's hard enough to make a design that can stand a high amount of vibrations. You can't even see the sword vibrating because it's vibrating very quickly. And there is this shock breaker, so the vibration doesn't flow to the handle and the user. It took me 3 years just to design this. After that, the sharpness. It indeed increases the sharpness, but not at the level it can cut through anything. The metal I threw at Kai was a brittle metal, and it already gave a resistance. If it were a hard magical beast shell or a harder metal, he might not be able to cut it. Of course, he can just increase the amount of vibration, but it comes back to the first problem. The conclusion is, this vibration is good but not overpowered. Such a shame. Ria Ross shook her head in disappointment. Chapter 147, Birthday Present. The disappointment of the professor affected Kai also. They could somehow understand the reason after the explanation. It could be said that the reality was different than the expectation, or at least, it wasn't possible to reach the expectation yet in this era and technology. Anyway, you already have an increase in sharpness. I have seen the report about you fighting the turtle that led you to change with Michelle. With this vibration sword, you should be able to cut its shell probably. Ria shrugged and rose from her seat, walking toward an alchemy table with many kinds of tubes containing weird colored fluid. Kai followed her movement and made a weird expression when she walked back and brought one of the tubes. And this is my real birthday present for you. Ria shoved a tube containing a blue liquid to Kai's hand. This is... Kai looked at the small tube in his hand. and furrowed his eyebrows, as he knew it was for him from the moment she picked it up. This is what I have promised you back then. Ria smiled. Don't tell me, Kai gasped while staring at Ria with a dumbfounded face. You have finished it. Humph. Who do you think I am? As I said a few years ago, I will do my best for my only student. Ria made a smug smile. Thank you very much, teacher. Kai bowed his head out of habit. Although it has been successfully created, I need to test it first. Ria waved her hand, telling him not to thank her yet. You are right. I was too excited earlier. Kai took a deep breath. We need to test it first. How do we use it, teacher? Knowing your skill, I am fine to be the experiment subject. It's not an experimental subject. The first and the last thing I said to you as an experiment subject was when I injected the lion blood inside you. I have already done the necessary experiment, and I just want to see the effect. Yeah? Kai nodded with a smile before asking, So, what should I do? How do I use it? Ria paused for a few seconds and said, First of all, strip. Kai blinked a few times, wondering if he heard it right. Strip. Ah. I used the wrong word. Ria waved her hand, apologizing to him. Right. Kai nodded, followed by weird smiles from the others. I don't want you to strip. I want you to ejaculate and give me your sperm. Ria Ross finally corrected herself, albeit the correct one invited more misunderstanding. Kai's face distorted as all the gratitude he had for her vanished in a split second. I'm leaving. Oi, I really want your sperm to see whether the medicine is effective or not. This is the reason why you never do the deed, right? Ria quickly shouted as she watched Kai walk away. Kai halted his steps before turning around with an annoyed face. What do you mean? Ayaka was stupefied, confused with this discussion. Michelle and Tasha exchanged looks and made a weird smile because they knew the reason we had turned to Ayaka and started explaining. I didn't tell you this from the beginning, because the medicine is ready. But the magical beast blood is far superior to you think. Their gene will be carried into your child. That's why Kai doesn't want to do that. Even if you use a condom or something, there is still a chance to make a child. Kai rolled his eyes before saying, It was 5 years ago when you said this to me. Haha. At least, I have solved this problem already. I want to have the last check of your sperm to make sure it's effective. Anyway, I should continue talking about the risk. When a child is born with one or both parents being zodiac, the child will carry the gene of the magical beasts. However, you need to know this is a reality, not a fantasy. Like Kai's vibration sword, the child might have some animal features, but it won't be like cat ears or tail. It would be worse, like fur. Maybe your child will be covered with furs, or they might have paws instead of hands. When that time comes, will you be able to say you love the kid? It's easy to say you will love them, but it will take a lot of determination to fulfill that love. At that time, your kid might even be hated by others. Ria closed her eyes and sighed. I should stop here. Kai looked at the medicine in his hand before asking, This medicine can make the animal gene dormant, right? Yeah, though your partner also needs to take another medicine. The medicine will kill only the animal gene. For now, I only have medicine to kill the lion gene, and each zodiac will need some tweaking to match their blood. In other words, Aries can't do the deed for the time being, but the other two can, Ria said nonchalantly. I see. How about the rest? Like Pisces and Sagittarius, Kai asked. They are the same as you right now. Anyway, rather than talking about them, I need to talk about Ayaka first. Ria's expression turned serious as she called Ayaka by her name rather than her nickname. The situation is more complicated on the female side, especially when you decide to have a kid. The gene might have been eliminated in the first phase. However, they need to take a daily nutrient for the baby, and the gene might also come along with that time. That's why, if you want to conceive a child, you need another medicine to make the magical beast gene dormant for at least a year. Ayaka gasped as she never thought that far. She glanced at Kai's expression, wondering if he was mad because she turned into a zodiac or that. Kai nodded and let out a relieved sigh. I see teacher has everything covered, of course. I needed to think that as well before I turned her into a zodiac. Ria snorted. Anyway, you can put your luggage here and stay for a few days. We can have the last test for the medicine before I give you a go. Ria smirked. Hee, little virgin boy. Kai stared at her and let her say whatever she wanted, only because of the medicine. So, do you want to test the medicine first? Or finish our talk first? Ria asked. Kai pondered for a moment before saying, let's talk first. There are many things that we need to talk about. Sure. First of all, I want to know more about my student. What kind of magic are you researching right now? Sound levitation. Kai simply said the topic. Oh, that one is a pretty cool concept. But how is your ear? Ria Ross only thought for a few seconds before she found out the weakness of the concept. It might be possible with sound insulation magic, but if I use it continuously just to float in the air and observe my enemies, it's better to use my ears more than my eyes. Kai shrugged. Though I admit, if I can move freely in the sky, it will be pretty useful. Move freely. Do you mean flying? Ria asked. Yeah. Ria looked down for a while before saying, I can't really help you with sound concept, since those ears are the only ones that can help you to understand the sound. Thanks. This vibration sword alone is enough for the time being. As for the sound levitation, we will see it later. Kai nodded. How about we talk about the things I want to ask? Right. We have finished the vibration sword, the medicine, and your magic. Now we should talk about that. Raya nodded. As you know, my research is related to you, so all the animals in this will be related to strength, speed, instinct, and eyes. These are the 4 abilities you received from the lion blood. Yeah. The eyes don't really stand out that much though. It only makes my eyes a bit better than normal humans. It was far below eagle eyes, even though lion has pretty good eyesight, said Kai while crossing his arms. Indeed. Ayaka has received the wildebeest, which symbolizes speed, and leafcutter ant, which symbolize strength, and the animal instincts mixed together into one entity. Thus I give her the name of Aries, Ria explained. I still need to register her identity as a zodiac to the government, so they can give some power with that identity. Thank you, teacher. Kai bowed his head. You better thank me. How about fighting me after this? I want to see your progress after a decade. Listening to your achievement on the battlefield makes me curious about your current prowess. You don't mind, right? Ria Ross smiled, revealing her real intention once again. He became speechless and looked down. Don't worry, we will only have 1 match, not 100 matches. With the assurance from Ria, Kai finally nodded. All right. As long as it's only 1 match, Michelle and Tasha were astonished, while Ayaka was eager to see Kai's real prowess. All of them were looking forward to the fight. Let's talk about the raid mission. Then I'm sure you've gotten a pretty clear plan as my disciple, right? How about you show me right now? Right now, Ria smirked, changing the topic and planning to tease him about his plan. Kai gulped down before walking toward her. Fine. I hope you don't disappoint me too much, my beloved student. The bar had been set as Kai handed her a few papers and began talking. All right. First of all, we are going to talk about. Kai began his explanation. Chapter 148. SS Rank Magical Beast. That's my plan. Does teacher have any suggestions? Kai finally finished his 30 minutes long explanation. In the meantime, not a single word was spoken either from Ria and other girls. Suggestion. Nah, I don't want to give you suggestions for this mission because it's just an easy way for you. Instead, I will give you some homework so you will know what you are missing and search for the answer yourself. She shook her head and answered calmly. All right. This is teacher's style of teaching anyway. Kai nodded. There should be 1.5 weeks before the mission. Maybe I will stay here for 1 or 2 days and work on it after I get back. In that case, I will give you the assignment later. Ria nodded, leaned back to the chair and closed her eyes, formulating a few questions and writing it down. Suddenly, Kai broke his silence with an unexpected question. By the way, teacher, I almost forgot to ask this, but I need to ask you this. What is SS Rank Magical Beast? Kai asked. Ria opened her mouth in surprise, while her face appeared a shocked expression. Her hand slipped out of the table, but she didn't fall because her other hand held onto her chair. Michelle and the others had a confused expression before it turned into a shocked one. They couldn't understand why a person like Ria, who had been in control this entire time, suddenly had such an expression. SS Rank Magical Beast. Michelle had a distorted face while she asked. She never heard such a term before, so this clearly shocked her. If Kai asked such a question, it would mean he already knew such an existence. The problem would be what kind of existence an SS Rank Magical Beast was. Ayaka and Tasha couldn't help but recall the S-rank magical beast they met in Russia, the snake god. Recalling such a beast made them think of how puny their existences were, and to think there was another existence beyond that snake gasp. Ayaka closed her mouth with her hand, while Tasha looked at Kai with sweat beginning to appear on her forehead. What do you mean, Kai? The highest should be an S-rank magical beast. Right, teacher. Can you answer that question? When I asked Sir Nathan, he said to ask you, Kai asked with a grim expression. Seeing her reaction already let him know that she had some knowledge about it, that Nathan, I really should come and beat him up for good. Rhea bit her lips while slamming her table. A few seconds later, she suddenly looked up with another shocked expression. Wait, if you are asking me that question, it would mean you have known about that, right? Kai looked around and nodded his head. Yeah, teacher is right. Hi Zai, I should have predicted that you will ask that question after the battle in Cuba. I have miscalculated that Nathan would explain it to you and ask the other one to me. With your ears, you should know about that on the battlefield. Wait. Now that I think about it, the report isn't correct. The reason for the battle wasn't numerous magical beasts. Instead, it should be that, why does the teacher ask? Isn't it in the report with your rank? Kai asked with a confused expression. That old man was playing with his life. She narrowed her eyes and released killing intents. What do you mean? Do you think that old man would send you into a mission like that without my permission? No. He needs to ask my permission first. I agreed with him because of his proposal about his plan and asked him to give me the report later. It seems I can't trust that old man anymore. Fine then. Rhea was seriously pissed about it. So can teacher answer my question? Kai looked at Michelle and the others before turning back to Rhea. 2 S-rank magicians and a zodiac. They indeed have a rank to access more information. However, I can only tell you about the SS rank magical beast. Not that unless you ask me individually, it's only because of my identity you can enjoy that kind of rank after all. She shrugged. Yeah, that's fine. CSS rank magical beast is. Rhea paused for a moment, staring at Kai for a minute. Teacher, what is it? The suspense is too long, you know. Kai made a weird expression, while his fingers were twitching, because he didn't know what she was thinking. I have given you the answer. Rhea merely answered with a simple but meaningful line. Kai fell into silence and looked down, weighing something in his mind. She has given me the answer. Is she playing around because Sir Nathan lied on the report? No, teacher wouldn't direct that anger at me. Then she must have answered my question, but there is no word that describes it. Wait, word. He looked up and stared back as he realized the answer. Teacher, don't tell me. Oh, you are quick to catch on. Rhea smirked proudly. What is the answer? Tasha furrowed her eyebrows while Ayaka crossed her arms. Both of them began thinking about the answer. On the other hand, Michelle gasped before unconsciously muttering, Kai. The SS rank magical beast is Kai. Tasha and Ayaka came into a realization as they looked back at Rhea to check the answer. That's right. I am staring at an SS rank magical beast. Rhea glanced at Ayaka for a few seconds to strengthen her point. The SS rank magical beast is the zodiacs, which means Leo, Aries, Pisces, Sagittarius, and Taurus. Kai closed his eyes for a few seconds before letting out a long sigh. I see. Sir Nathan didn't want to talk about it because teacher would be the best person to answer this question. Yeah. Don't worry. Even if the whole world treats you as a magical beast, I will just destroy the world together with the magical beasts. She shrugged. As long as I am alive, no one in this base will mistreat you. Then, when I pass away, you will be able to fend them off by yourself. Besides, with the medicine, your children won't bring the curse of their parents, though I can't say anything if the government creates more zodiacs. At the very least, the ones that I care about will be fine. Rhea smiled gently, treating Kai like her own child. Thank you, teacher. Kai was moved. She wanted to enjoy this kind of mood, but couldn't. Her expression turned serious again as she said, There is also another kind of SS rank magical beasts out there. Do you mean someone from the Europe Union base? There is a zodiac in that place, right? Kai asked. No, I'm not talking about that. Rhea shook her head with a grim expression. I am talking about the failed experiments. Failed experiments. Kai frowned before releasing his killing intents. This was the exact reason why Kai asked Ria to stop the Zodiac after him. It was only after they kicked me out of the project. They tested on a bunch of the people and turned them into half beast, half human. As I said earlier, it wasn't like the movie. Instead, their appearances were horrendous. Most of those who survived were locked inside a cell so they could get more data. But after a certain accident, all the failed experiments managed to escape from that place and scattered around the continent. No one knew about their locations, and the government couldn't do anything. Is it fine to talk about it to us? Michelle, who knew about the rank and classified information well enough, asked. It's considered the same topic, so don't worry. Ria brushed her anxiety away with a single sentence. Anyway, the animal genes in their body already dominated their human genes, so the magical beasts treat them as their own and don't attack them at all. If you met them, can you kill them for me? After all, the failure part came from my own experiment. It's the government fault, not you. With your experiment, I could live, so I am not blaming you, teacher. Kai smiled gently. Looking at her ashamed expression made him want to change the topic. He let out a long sigh first before he asked, That's right, you want to fight me, right? How about we do it now? Raya stared at him for a few seconds before smiling. Yeah, we should. The rest of you may watch our match. I am sure it will be beneficial for you. Kai took the first step toward the door before Ria passed him and guided them to the battle room. All of them entered the practice room where Ayaka trained with Ria. This was the battle between a teacher and a student. No one would actually interfere. Kai glanced at Ria, who already entered the simulation tube, waiting for him inside the stage she had prepared. Michelle and the others stopped not far from Kai, before their attention was taken away by the screen above the simulation tube. They saw Ria Ross with her poker face appear in a plain white room, waiting for Kai to arrive. Knowing that he had made her wait, Kai quickly entered the simulation tube and entered the white room. The room was quite big, considering it was a 50x50 meters room. Are we going to fight here? Kai asked while looking around the room. Yeah. She nodded while stretching her palm toward him before pulling it back again mysteriously. I have inputted the data of your vibration sword, so you can call the swords here. Kai nodded with a serious expression, closed his eyes, and imagined a pair of swords from earlier. A second later, they appeared right in front of him. He took both of them and swung it a couple of times to check if they were the same swords. How is it? It's the same, right? Ria asked while inserting her hands on her laboratory white coat's pockets. Yeah, there's no problem. Kai nodded before relaxing every muscle in his hands and pointing his swords against his teacher. He closed his eyes for a few seconds before opening it again. However, his eyes were not the same anymore. The eyes turned into sharp yellow eyes, releasing killing intents. The time limit is 30 minutes. If no one is defeated by that time, it's your win, Ria Ross said, and stomped the ground with her right foot. A greenish-silver magic circle appeared on the ground before a white sword slowly emerged from within. The sword length was the same as Kai's, but without any decorations, as it was made of magic. Start. As soon as Ria shouted, both of them leaped forward and slashed their swords against each other. Clank. The clicking sound of metals was the starting sign of this great battle. Chapter 19, Kai vs. Ria, Part 1. Clank. Kai and Ria clashed their swords against each other in the middle of the room. A magic circle appeared on her hand, pouring the magic power into her right hand. On the other hand, Kai pushed her back with his strength. Even Ria would lose in terms of strength. Ha! You can control your strength now. Back then, you broke every single thing you touched because you couldn't control it. You even needed to lie to your parents for a week-long school trip. I used my status there to have the school make a fake letter to your parents. Ria smirked, taunting Kai. She jumped backward before looking at her hand, feeling Kai's strength. Kai wasn't flustered, hearing every embarrassing thing he did a decade ago. Instead, he smiled and said, Said a person who killed a kid 11,000 times. You shouldn't be known as a genius, but a kid killer. Heh, I just want the best for you, my beloved student. Look, taunting me is the same as asking me to kill you, but seeing you are brave enough to provoke me is the proof that my training is a success. She smiled before leaping toward him again. It only took a single look for Kai to realize that she was faking the attack. He slashed his sword right in front of her face while preparing for another change. As Kai predicted, she continued her swing toward Kai's neck before leaping right above Kai and swung her sword directly at the back of his head. Kai merely smiled upon seeing this. He turned his wrist and swung the sword in a completely different direction. Knowing how hard it was to kill her in a single strike, Kai was planning to take one of her legs first. Meanwhile, his other sword went toward the back of his head, protecting his head from her sword. Just like how he predicted her, she also predicted him. Got her. As soon as he thought that, Kai heard another sound. Rumble, rumble, she read me, Kai thought after pinpointing the exact location of the sound. He gritted his teeth and shifted his sword again, but it was a bit late. A sword with the same appearance as the white sword in Rhea's hand appeared from the ground. It punctured out of the ground and flew toward Kai's right hand. He pulled back his hand, but the sword still grazed his upper arm before it stuck on the ceiling. Kai gritted his teeth and leaped forward, making a distance to Rhea. Hee. Why don't you continue? You can get one of my legs earlier. Rhea smirked and teased him after escaping unscathed. For what price? Your sword will cut my hand if I truly attack you. You can just replace your foot with a sword. Though it may not be as best as moving with a real foot, it might only decrease 10% of your prowess. But for me, I will need to fight you with only one hand. I will be far at a disadvantage. Kai snorted. He explained his train of thought from earlier honestly, and made Rhea smile. The 7 years old you will continue though. That's when I didn't have any experience. I only believed that I would be satisfied if I could get one of your feet. However, I am not satisfied with only that. Kai took a deep breath before releasing his killing intent once more. I am fully intended to bring you down this time. Oh, are you sure you can do that? Rhea pointed her finger at Kai's wound and said, That wound is already a point for me. Kai took a deep breath, ignoring her words. He looked at his own teacher like his mortal enemy, and his prey as to release a stronger killing intent, as well as an animal instinct from his body. A magic circle appeared and enveloped the two spheres of his swords. Vibration sword, you are using it already. As soon as she uttered those words, she jumped forward and struck Kai's swords a few times. Do you think I will let you? Kai didn't say anything, and kept backing away despite getting struck by Rhea. Her aim was to disrupt the vibration to prevent Kai from activating it. After all, even her sword wouldn't be able to handle Kai's vibration swords. It was after chasing him around for a few minutes, Kai finally made a counterattack. Kai said with a smile, It's my trump card. How can I use it so early? Rhea Ross looked at Kai, specifically his finger in which a green magic circle appeared. She gritted her teeth and thought, Sound attack. She quickly created a magic circle on her ears. Although it wasn't as effective as Kai's magic, it was better than nothing. Yet, despite her efforts, Kai already finished his magic before her. He snapped his fingers while covering his ears with sound insulation magic. Lullaby. Ding. The loud sound echoed inside the room. Although she had many connections in United Asia, she didn't know Kai's magic at all. Hearing this loud noise made her head in pain. The two magic circles on her ears gradually disappeared. Even her sword started deforming, as it was purely made out of magic, showing that she lost control of her own magic. Kai took advantage of that split-second confusion to fully activate his vibration sword and swing it at his teacher. In the midst of pain, Rhea Ross still retained her ability to think and parried Kai's attack with her deformed sword. Unfortunately, Kai's vibration sword was far better. The slash that also contained his extraordinary strength shattered Rhea's sword and made its way toward her neck. Got her. The moment he thought that, a magic circle appeared on Rhea's cheek before a small sword rose. The sword looked like a fork, and its only purpose was to block Kai's attack. Kai snorted at her, knowing it was futile since that metal wouldn't be able to block this attack. At the same time, a magic circle appeared below Kai's feet as another sword appeared. Unlike before when he didn't have sound insulation magic covering his ears, he couldn't hear the sword coming. The sword flew at high speed, planning to pierce Kai's head, only after it almost struck him. Kai's animal instinct sensed it. He tilted his head to the side to avoid the sword, but it was too late. The sword grazed him from his right cheek, running to the right side of his forehead without running through his eyes. Not wanting to be outdone, Kai finished his swing. Kai felt a bit of restriction on the small fork on Rhea's cheek, but it was easily cuttable. Little did he know, the actual purpose of the small weapon wasn't to stop his attack. Instead, she used the little restriction it gave to force her head to move downward. She had proved such a thing was possible after knowing about the restriction and used it right after learning it from Kai. It only cut the upper section of the fork. Even so, the flying piece of the fork grazed at the same spot as Kai. Both of them jumped backward at the same time as the sound stopped echoing. Kai released his sound insulation magic while Rhea took a deep breath. Her cheek was inflated like she was munching something, but after 2 seconds, she spat her teeth to the ground. "You outsmarted me for a second. It's truly good to take a moment of pain to deal a deathly blow. But it won't go so well if the opponent knows about your sound ability. Using the knowledge about the sound insulation magic, I sent an attack from your blind spot," Rhea commented calmly after spitting the teeth. "I understand. I was too rushed earlier. If I built up the trap a little bit, I should be able to take you down." Kai sighed. "Nah. If it were the same movement, you would probably only take my ear, not more. Besides, my cheek is still aching right now because of your attack," Rhea complained before complimenting him. "Though I can see how much improvement you made in a decade, I could say that I am proud of you. You are still a barrier that I need to overcome before I can climb higher." Kai shook his head. "You are 27 years too early for that." Rhea laughed. "Please don't say the difference between our age. It sounds too realistic." Kai made a weird expression. However, hearing it made it obvious that Rhea treated him as an equal in talent and magic. "You are right. Then I should say the generic one. You were 10 years too early." "Nah, sounds bad. Fine, you can surpass me in 5 years." Rhea shrugged. "If it's in close combat, I also believe so. But your fighting style is more suited to fighting magical beasts than humans." Kai narrowed his eyes, not taking the compliment. "Haha, you are right. Maybe I should take this one more seriously." She grinned. Outside, Ayaka looked confused, not understanding Kai's words. She muttered. What did he mean by more suited to fighting magical beasts? Michelle let out a long sigh after listening to her question. She answered with another question. "What do you think her title is?" Ayaka tilted her head in confusion and thought about her fighting skill. "Hence," she said with an unsure tone. "Genius fighter, mad scientist." Tasha was also interested in this matter and answered. Michelle shook her head with a helpless smile. She was known as a woman loved by the swords. "What do?" Ayaka wanted to ask but saw Michelle point her finger at the screen. There, they could see a huge silver magic circle covering a fifth of the ceiling before a few tens of swords appeared and were ready to shower Kai with love. Chapter 50, Kai vs. Rhea. Last part. Kai looked at the magic circle and took a deep breath, knowing the battle would be harder from now on. This magic circle felt familiar for him, making him think about the past. He gulped down, pointed his sword both at Rhea as well as her magic circle, and murmured something almost soundlessly. Soon after, he pretended to close his eyes to focus on his hearing. In reality, he was baiting her to make the first move, sword incarnation. Rhea Ross smirked as she activated the magic circle on the ceiling. However, none of the swords actually flew toward Kai. Instead, she was the one who charged at him, swinging her sword. Kai opened his eyes with a trace of surprise. Nonetheless, he blocked Rhea's sword with the sword on his right hand. The vibration sword cut through her sword in almost an instant. It was at this time he finally heard 3 noises coming from above. One of them came from right above him, while the other 2 flew around and attacked him from the side. Kai swung his other sword to the left, splitting the sword into 2. On the other hand, he used his right sword to destroy the sword on his right. As soon as the swords clashed, he realized something wasn't right. The swords that flew toward him from the side continuously flew toward his head, and because it had been split into half, it would attack him from the front and back of his head before crashing into each other. He had seen something like this in his match against Isabel. The sword would ricochet toward his head if they crashed, and the sword that came from above him was there to make sure the shattered pieces would go toward him. In fact, she thought about this possibility the moment Kai used his vibration sword. By having the swords bounced, she would be able to kill him. A surprise suddenly appeared on her face. When she saw Kai ducking, Rhea instantly remembered the battle between Kai and Isabel and cursed her. The moment Kai ducked down, the only thing he could see was a kick from his teacher. His two hands couldn't react to this kick, but if he received this kick, which was aiming at his stomach, he might receive more damage than he expected. He thought about using his foot, but it was sealed by ducking down. Noticing how hopeless he was, he gritted his teeth and took the kick head-on. Bam! Gah! He spat blood before the kick blew him away and crashed into the wall. Boom! It created a small crater on the wall before a few rubbles fell to the ground. Rhea didn't give Kai a chance and sent another 3 swords at him. Kai didn't let out a groan even once and endured his pain before coming out of the wall and rolling to the side. After this, Rhea stopped her attack because Kai had regained his bearing again. Hee hee. That match against Isabel allowed you to avoid my attack, Rhea smirked. I admit that. Kai nodded. If I didn't encounter those ricocheting bullets, your sword would pierce my head before I knew it. Hee hee. It's good then. As long as you are able to improve yourself on every occasion, I am satisfied. Rhea smiled. Still. Kai paused for a moment, straightened his back, and bowed to her. Thank you for your guidance. As expected, you notice it. Rhea Ross smiled before explaining. I can say that there is one good news and one bad news for your vibration sword. I will say the good news first. It is powerful close combat magic. I have no doubt it will reach one of the top strongest close combat magic. However, there is bad news as well. I don't know if the intelligence beast will find this or not, but I'm sure humans will know about this weakness as long as they are experienced enough. She paused for a moment before continuing. And the bad news is, before finishing her words, Kai already answered her. It's too powerful. Exactly. Rhea smiled and nodded. Outside the room, Tasha couldn't help but exclaim, the good news is powerful, and bad news is too powerful. Is she joking around? Shh. Michelle put her index finger on her mouth, gesturing Tasha to shut up before turning back to the screen. Rhea explained. Just like before, I use a weak metal for that sword. I'm sure you won't even feel a restriction and cut those swords like butter. It could be exploited in a few ways, and I use one of them. It might fail to kill you earlier, but you should note it down in your head. Yes, I will be careful. Well, that vibration sword is really useful, especially against magical beasts. Assuming you can cut down your enemy in one single swing, even I want such a technique. She shrugged. Haha, teacher is already powerful. If you have this ability, I don't have a chance to win against you. Kai smiled. Oh, you sound like you can still win against me. Rhea smirked while narrowing her eyes. Of course. Kai pulled back one of his swords before pointing his palm toward Rhea. A magic circle appeared in front of his palm. Rhea furrowed her eyebrows, not feeling anything about this. She thought this was his shield before realizing something off. The battle between Kai and Isabel flashed in her mind, specifically the scene after Isabel flew to the sky. At that time, Kai used his magic circle mysteriously before Isabel focused on him again. This was certainly strange because there was no sound or whatsoever. What is? Rhea suddenly felt her eyes aching before going blurry. It felt like the eyes were shaking. No, vibrating. You, Kai smiled. As I said earlier, I am planning to win against you, teacher. Rhea gritted her teeth while sending another wave of swords from above. Unfortunately, Kai already focused on defending to buy time. Rhea's speed was indeed fast, but it was still within his range of power. She jumped to the side, but Kai kept pointing the magic circle at her, continuously shaking her eyes. The eyes felt like it wanted to jump off the sockets, so she knew it was the time to end it. Rhea Ross sent another 3 swords toward Kai. The latter simply smiled as he slashed the 3 swords. This time, Kai had deactivated his vibration sword, so he only blew the swords away. Knowing Kai was only buying time, Rhea blinked her eyes continuously, enduring the pain on her eyes. This is really a good technique. You are attacking my eyes by attacking with a sound wave with the same frequency as my eyes. If I'm not wrong, it's 19 Hz. He knew that Rhea had figured his technique out. Why don't you attack my heart? I am sure that I will die earlier than this, Rhea Ross said. Teacher, do you know how seismic surveys work? Kai asked. I know. This is still in the scope of your study. Wait, she suddenly came to a realization. I see. So you are telling? A portion of your sound wave will be reflected by my skin. then some of it will be refracted. Summing it up, only a portion of the original sound wave will come to my heart. On the other hand, the eyes are much easier to attack because it's too exposed. No one would suddenly close their eyes just because of this, since they are relying on their eyes to see their opponent. And the moment they realize they could lighten the process, it's already too late for them. Rhea Ross laughed. You must be saying, it's faster to cut someone down than waiting for your attack to kill them. Teacher has gotten the point. Kai smiled as he looked Rhea Ross closing her eyes. However, he knew it was already too late, as blood began flowing out of her eyes like tears. At this point, he could say that he had succeeded in blinding Rhea Ross. Still, this is really dangerous because you can make someone blind without them noticing. If the government knew this, Rhea wasn't flustered, even though she just lost her vision. Instead, she acted like nothing happened. I know I might be targeted. That's why I'm not using it unless necessary, or I know it's okay. Kai finally leaped toward her after destroying her eyes. He slashed at her neck to kill her. Unfortunately, Rhea Ross got the better of him. She grabbed Kai's wrist and redirected it somewhere before slashing his right hand. If you think I can't fight without my eyes, you are still a naive boy. Although I am not like you, I can still use my ears and instinct to sense your movement. Kai gritted his teeth despite going through so much pain by having his hand cut. Even so, not screaming right now means you have gotten accustomed to the pain. This is another proof that my training is successful. Rhea Ross smirked on Kai's forehead, veins bulge out, hating her comment. Even so, he still didn't make a sound. Seeing how his hand and sword flew, he abandoned the magic circle on his left hand and grabbed the sword before slashing at her neck once again. Rhea twitched her eyebrows, barely sensing the attack. Luckily, she still had time to react. She tilted her body down, but Kai still managed to take her right hand. His sword continued toward Rhea's neck. At the same time, he also sent a kick at her head, hoping to crack her head with his extraordinary strength in case she still managed to escape from his sword. Seeing how the situation turned hopeless, Rhea smiled. Chapter 151. Rhea House's last part. Ah, that was nice. Rhea Ross stretched her hands upward and said with a blissful expression. She looked refreshed after fighting Kai in that intense match. Nice try, you brat. Kai's simulation chamber, and the person in question slowly revealed himself. He had a bit disappointed face, but still filled with energy. Kai looked at Rhea and sighed. In the instant he thought he could win, Rhea pulled the clutch and won. He closed his eyes to watch the last scene on his mind once again. 2 minutes ago, when he slashed at her and sent a kick as a reassurance, Kai thought he could win at that moment. However, Rhea's counterattack began. 3 swords from the magic circle on the ceiling struck forth, aiming at his hand. It only took him an instant to realize that his hand and foot were aligned. He could easily shift his hand and changed his target a little bit to avoid these 3 swords. It was different for his foot. Having no ability to change direction as to retain his balance, Kai decided to sacrifice his food at this point. He gathered enough resolve in his heart and slightly adjusted his hand to the side, avoiding the 3 swords. The aim became a bit off, but he could somehow adjust the target and aim to stab Rhea's heart. Kai looked at the 3 swords in which one of them pierced his foot, stopping him from kicking her. He gritted his teeth as he endured the pain, like how he endured the pain on his hand. Ha! Letting out a weak groan to pump his determination, Kai pushed his sword toward Rhea's heart before noticing something was off crack. Suddenly, a cracking sound echoed through his ears, and this sound destroyed all his hopes. In this high-speed battle, it was already hard enough to adjust one's movement like Kai earlier, let alone moving it to the second time. Wait. Kai suddenly widened his eyes, bit his lips, and understood everything from the beginning. I see teacher has beaten me as soon as I moved toward her. A sword suddenly appeared from the ground, striking Kai's sword from the bottom. Even with all of his power, Kai could only adjust the sword so it wouldn't fly off from his hand. He had stopped his vibration sword magic earlier, so he couldn't cut through this sword like butter. Instead, it was knocked away and somehow ended up on Rhea's stomach. Rhea took this chance to deal a decisive blow on Kai. Sword appeared right on her hand as she swung it while falling to the ground. Because of her position, she couldn't slash his neck, but it was enough to split him into 2 right on his stomach. Thus the result between the clash between Kai Carter and Rhea Ross. Kai opened his eyes and sighed once again. He looked at the three girls that slowly walked at him with a worried expression. They knew Kai was pretty shaken about the result, and they thought about how to comfort him. Before they could say something, Ria already beat them with a laugh. Ha ha! Your progress is beyond my imagination. I almost died back there. Are you trying to comfort me? All I can hear is your sarcastic voice. Kai narrowed his eyes. Ah, you found out, she grinned. I lost the moment I deactivated my vibration sword. Kai let out a long sigh. By convincing me about the weakness of my vibration sword, you somehow instilled the thought about deactivating it in my mind. In the end, I deactivated it and charged at you. The moment it happened, you used the first three swords as baits. Now that I think about it, the positioning of the three swords didn't let me shift my hands to the right. In other words, you already knew about the attack from underground. I don't have the vibration sword anymore, so that last sword strike managed to push my sword away. If I have it, your sword will be the one to be cut. Then I will win this match. Even so, this is only me ranting about the match. Haha, I'm satisfied to see you know that much. I don't need to worry about your observation skill either. Ria nodded, satisfied. Besides, you have almost killed me. If you throw your balance off to get 1 extra second, you should be able to slash my heart. The result will probably be a draw. Kai stared at her with a poker face, hearing her say draw instead of victory. Even after all of it, she still thought he couldn't win. Don't worry about it too much. You are still too young. If you beat me right now, the higher up will start looking at you like prey. I bet you don't want your life to be restricted, so just get stronger for now. I will be waiting for you. She smiled. Kai closed his eyes and nodded. Thank you. No, you can get some rest and meet me after 15 minutes. Ria Ross thought for a moment and said, all of you have a room. Ayaka knows that place, so you can ask here where to put your luggage. She then left the room. Ayaka looked at their expression first. All of this was because of him, so Kai broke his silence. We can grab our luggage first and put it there. Ayaka merely nodded and said, sure. After grabbing their stuff, Ayaka led them toward a corridor. Kai noticed that she somehow got too conscious about the only room in the corridor, but didn't say anything. It was obvious that it was the operation room. There were around 10 rooms inside this corridor, in which the first room belonged to the Professor. Kai just chose a room beside Ria's room without thinking about anything. Michelle, Tasha, and Ayaka also chose their respective room, not far from Kai's room. Kai had a command from Ria to meet her after 15 minutes, but only after an hour, he finally came out of his room. It was also done in a very sneaky way, without alarming the others. At first, Michelle banged his door, asking him whether he wanted to go or not, but got no response. When he opened his door, only Michelle waited long enough for him. Professor Ria is waiting for you. Tasha and Ayaka are buying some stuff for our dinner. Kai made a weird expression and nodded. Yo. Ria made an evil smile as she stretched her hand toward Kai, demanding him to hand over something. Although he was embarrassed because Michelle was here too, he still handed a glass tube containing a white liquid. Ria didn't care about his embarrassment. She took the tube, rose from her seat, and walked toward the operating room. Kai and Michelle followed her without saying anything, especially Michelle. She shouldn't speak anything about this matter to make Kai wasn't embarrassed anymore. As soon as they went inside the room, she quickly opened the tube and separated it into a few tubes. She only needed a portion of it and poured it into a small glass cup. Taking out a few liquids from her collections, Ria began her test. At the same time, Michelle's hand slowly sneaked inside Kai's hand before holding it tightly. Kai glanced at her and found the serious expression filled with hope. He smiled and held her hand back. She had been hoping for this time since a few years ago, and with one presented in front of her, she wished for this medicine to be a success. Kai also closed his eyes, hoping the same thing. Only after an unbearable half an hour did Ria suddenly straighten her back, looked at Kai and Michelle with a smile, and said, "It's effective." The burst of happiness flashed on Michelle's heart and made her couldn't hold it anymore. She hugged Kai tightly and said, "We did it." Kai could feel the anxiety from the shaking hands, so he hugged her back and stroked her hair. Yes. At the same time, Ayaka and Tasha, who were not aware of the result, walked to buy some groceries for dinner. Ayaka looked down for a few minutes while walking toward the store. She took a deep breath and braved her heart to ask, "Why did we leave? You can do it together. We." Even with all of that, the words stuck on her throat. Tasha's expression distorted a little bit before turning into her poker face again. She shook her head while closing her eyes. "Ayaka, why did you stop? That was the reason why we left." Listening to her words, Ayaka couldn't help but apologize. "I'm sorry. Although we have recognized each other, it was still different from doing it together. We are not in some movies or whatsoever that we can just blast our way to create a scene like that." "What? Do you want to suddenly turn into a lesbian to play together?" Tasha paused for a moment and continued, "I might be able to do it together, but not now. I need time to accept that." Ayaka had no words to say anything because the deepest part of her heart also told her the same. "I'm sorry for asking a dumb question." They bought everything they needed, but knowing that the deed had been done by looking at Michelle's smiley face. However, neither Tasha nor Ayaka said anything about it and acted like nothing happened. Michelle also didn't brag, respecting each other. In the end, they stayed for 2 days in Ria's house, and only Ayaka couldn't do it because the medicine for her animal blood wasn't ready yet. Ria promised to finish her medicine as soon as possible. They did it in Ria's house, not because they were perverts or something. They wanted Ria to check their bodies up after doing the deed, making sure there was no future problem. Luckily, after going several tests, none of them had a problem. Michelle and Tasha pumped their fists secretly. After finishing all the matters in this house, Kai's group finally went home. In front of her house, a taxi to the station was already standing by. Ria saw them off but didn't forget to say another warning to Kai. "I know that you are happy with the medicine, but do it in moderation, okay? There aren't many supplies anyway. And don't forget to wear protection or have a pill first for the time being, because the medicine for pregnancy is still in progress." Kai nodded with a grim expression, because he took this matter seriously. He wanted to be responsible for all the things he had done, so there was no way he didn't heed her warning. "Teacher, thank you so much." Kai bowed to her, showing his utmost gratitude. "It's fine," Ria Ross smiled gently. "See you soon, Kai." "Yes, you too, take care of your health." Kai smiled as he looked at Ria, who waved her hand. They went to the taxi and finally went home. Chapter 152, Military Campaign. After reaching their house, Kai had no other thing to do other than working on his homework, especially the one that came from Ria Ross. It turned out that he still lacked a few things, so he quickly reinforced his current plan. Only, he didn't ask Tasha for help even though the latter had been asking him continuously. She had been more energetic ever since doing it with Kai. It looked like a dream come true for her, because she never knew the reason why Kai rejected her this whole time. When she first knew that the reason was about genetics, she was wondering what kind of burden that Kai carried this whole time. She even thought that Kai wasn't a straight guy at first, and the guilty feeling began rising in her heart. She could only help him with this kind of thing, but the latter declined her offer. Kai looked at Tasha, who had nothing to do, wrote a few things, and asked her to remember every single thing. He wanted to cram everything to Tasha because her space magic would surely help in this mission. After giving her some tasks, Kai went back to his room and holed up for a whole week. He only came out of his room to take a shower, eat, and school. Even in the school, Kai didn't talk much to think up more plans. Michelle and the others respected that and let him busy with his own things. The mission of the raid mission was already officialized when Kai visited Ria Ross. However, Evan was the only one in the room, so he took the official document and handed it to Kai. Inside the paper was only about the official order and basic information. The top 100 groups always got this every year, so they weren't surprised. Kai read the information and incorporated the idea into his plan. 1 week quickly passed by, and the time for the battle finally came. Kai opened his eyes after a long night's sleep. He rubbed his fuzzy eyes and rose from the bed. On the top corner of his table laid a few documents that he had been working this entire week. He changed his clothes and washed his face before grabbing the document with him. In the first front page was written, "Raid Mission, Underground Nest, Mission Reward, Unknown depending on the difficulty. Description, a full clearance of the complicated underground nest. The place is filled with bugs, mostly ants, so proceed with caution. Kai ate his breakfast with his family and had a bit more time with them in the morning, knowing he couldn't go back for a few days to weeks. After that, Kai and Tasha teleported right inside room 420. Only Shirotsuka Sanai had yet to come. All of them wore their usual battle uniform. It was a white school uniform coupled with long white pants. The white color was there so people could differentiate any color easier. Poison, colored liquids, and so on. However, they unusually wore a thick, long-sleeves uniform this time. At first, Kai thought it was to help them from the cold, but he noticed it was for something else. Remembering that their enemies were insects this time, he could somehow understand their worry. Not saying anything about their attire, Kai opened his communication device, checking if there was a message. Just as he was about to look at it, someone's footsteps echoed through the corridor in front of his room. Bang! That person suddenly slammed the door open and entered with another person. Sir Nathan. Kai recognized the first person and greeted him, but he furrowed his eyebrows upon seeing the second person. It was a middle-aged man with wavy blue hair and deep blue crystal eyes. He wore a light green military uniform with a warm coat. And the strict expression of this man suddenly turned into a warm smile. He looked at Kai with a gentle expression and said, "Hello, I'm Sherwin, the deputy of General Nathan for this raid mission. Because he might be busy, I will probably be with you for most of the time, Mr. Strategist." Sherwin walked toward him and stretched his hand forward, looking for a handshake. Kai nodded and shook his head. "I'm in your care," said Sherwin. "Oi oi, did you forget about me?" Nathan complained. However, when Kai and Sherwin turned around, they found Nathan sitting on a couch. Both of them couldn't help but twitch their eyebrows. Before they could say anything about him, Nathan opened his mouth again. "Joke aside, I'm sure you already know the deal about this raid mission, right? We are going to that place right now with me. There are several commanders standing by in our encampment. As for your teacher, she has gone with the other teachers." Nathan's expression turned serious, making Kai hesitate. Sherwin patted Kai's shoulder and nodded his head, telling him it was the plan. Kai sighed and looked at the girls and Evan. "Let's go." "Good." Nathan abruptly rose from his seat and vanished. The next thing they knew, he had reached the door. Kai and the others followed him to the backyard, where a slightly bigger military chopper was standing by for them. No one was waiting in front of the helicopter, except for the pilot. Nathan nonchalantly hopped inside and waved his hand to Kai, telling him to get in. As soon as all of them boarded inside the helicopter, they set off toward Canada. It was a long 4-hour journey, but Nathan didn't ask a single thing about the plan in this journey. Instead, he was asking about his daily activities and such. Finally, an abandoned city came into sight. It was the nearest city from the underground nest, which only took 5 minutes toward the underground nest. It was a small city, but they somehow set up buildings as barracks to hold more than 6,000 people. Kai could see and hear them from the sky before closing his eyes. The last time he had a mission in the open like this was in United Asia when the incident happened. He let out a sigh, thinking how bad his memories were. After all, it was like the eve of chaos, especially the part where he found George's corpse. Kai shook his head. There was another thing that disturbed him, but he kept it as a secret for now. He didn't want to make the others worry for the time being, especially his group. They landed in the city, and a soldier came, opening their door and greeting them. "Sir," she saluted, before stretching her hands to the side, asking him to go politely. "Thank you." Nathan nodded with a smile and walked toward their base. Kai and the others followed him because they didn't know a single thing about this temporary base. "Sherwin, you can tell them about this base and show their room. I will bring this guy to acquire the most important thing in this mission," Nathan said, before dragging Kai somewhere else. Michelle and the others already knew about Kai's role in this operation, so they nodded and followed Sherwin without making a fuss about it. On the other hand, Nathan brought Kai to an empty room. Before entering the room, he took off his shoes and said, "Take off your shoes first." Kai didn't know why he wanted to do that, but still followed his order. Both of them entered the room, and Kai was startled upon seeing the room. It was quite a big room, but unlike the base that had many rubles around, this room was plain white. The white color from this place didn't come from paint or whatsoever. Instead, it was covered with a huge paper, enveloping the whole room without leaving a single spot. When Kai was still in amazement, Nathan called someone, asking that person to come. Kai didn't know who it was, but he knew about his job. It should be the person who could fix his drawing. All right, we will wait for someone. In the meantime, I want you to tell me about the underground nest condition, such as their number and how big the place is, Nathan said. If you are going for an absolute detail, I need 1 or 2 days, Kai said before closing his eyes, getting the rough estimate. This might be a bit troublesome. I've underestimated the number. What do you mean? Nathan narrowed his eyes. I've noticed this when we're in the sky, but this place is still linked to the underground nest, specifically right beneath the place we descended earlier. If we make a hole around 15 meters deep, we will get inside the nest, Kai explained, still closing his eyes to get more focus. The shape of the nest itself is close to a circle around 3 kilometers in diameter. We are already above their territories, and I could somehow listen to their creeping around. If I can have some loud sound banging the ground, I could trace the area clearly, but I believe that is impossible. Kai sighed. Yeah, if we truly make that loud sound, we will surely alarm the enemy too much and possibly get swarmed by them. It's better to raid their turf because we can control them more easily. Nathan nodded. Kai nodded before making a weird expression. Well, I don't know if this is good or bad, but we are actually close to the center of this nest. I will show you on the map later. Sure. Nathan was a bit surprised, but still nodded his head like nothing happened. As for their numb, before Kai finished, the door was opened and a black-haired girl came in. Excuse me. Chapter 153. A different kind of light magic creek. Excuse me. The door opened and followed by a woman's voice. Kai turned around and saw a black-haired girl coming inside the room. She looked like someone in her early 20s, not looking like someone who had served the military for long. Oh, Vaya, you have come. Nathan smiled before waving his hand, asking her to come closer. Kai noticed her right after she came inside this building. After all, no one would be bothered enough to come inside this building. This is the one talked to you last time, Kai Carter. He would be creating the map with you, and this place will be your workplace. You can paint the wall as you like. Nathan introduced Kai to Via. How about you introduce yourself first? She nodded before looking at Kai politely. Nice to meet you, Sir Carter. I'm Via Carmen, and you can call me Via. Ha! Michael was the one who found your talent back then. Nathan smiled gently, recalling about the past. Yes, Via smiled and closed her eyes. I was only a kid who couldn't even enter either military school or magic academy. After all, I was only a useless light magic kid. Light magic. Kai widened his eyes in surprise before turning to Nathan, asking for an explanation. Is she an S-rank magician? No. I wasn't qualified as an S-rank magician despite having light magic. After all, my light magic is more to a light projection. I tried every light magic in the world, but none of them suit me, until Sir Michael found my talent to be useful for him. Via closed her eyes and explained. Why don't you show your magic? Nathan winked his eyes. He wanted her to show her magic to speed up the process. Via thought for a moment and nodded. She kneeled and placed her hand on the ground. Projection. A yellow magic circle appeared on the ground. It flashed a blue light before turning into a building projection, specifically this building. This is my power. Via smiled before suddenly touching the building. This is my power. My light magic is for projection. I can project everything I see and transform them into 3D images like this. She waved her hand, slapping the building. Surprisingly, the building crumbled to the ground. Surprising, Kai. What is that? Kai opened his mouth in surprise. I can also control the image itself. In other words, I can build the underground nest map perfectly. Via smiled gently. This is excellent magic. Back in the days, she even created SOS signals in the sky or created a terrain and battle simulation. Her power is truly useful, Nathan exclaimed proudly. I was just a useless person back then. If Sir Michael didn't invite me to join Graham family, I would only be the same useless person. Via shook her head and replied humbly, Haha, you don't need to be modest. You have saved many lives with your ability, even though you can't fight, and you can take pride in yourself. Nathan smiled. In fact, everyone could use their magic to help fight the magical beasts. They just don't know how to use it. Indeed, Via nodded in agreement. Kai looked down, thinking about himself. It was actually the start of him becoming an unorthodox magician, especially with the help of his hearing. Anyway, we should stop reminiscing because we need to finish many things, Vaya said before staring at Kai for a few seconds. Kai tilted his head in confusion. What is it? I need you to make the basic map first in this place before I can create the image in projection. After that, we can do some editing in detail before I make the map into a digital image and distribute it to the army, Vaya explained. I see. Sure, I will do my best to draw it. I'm sorry if my drawing is horrendous. Kai apologized for his skill first. Don't mind. The digital is better, so we should make the map as detailed as possible. Vaya nodded. Though I can only roughly guess the map according to the magical beasts and some of their vibration, I can't create 100%, but 70% should be possible. Kai turned to Nathan, who was the leader of this campaign. Oh, do you mean like some tunnel and such? It's really hard to create all of them without using your ears and some explosions. So, I don't really mind. We will ask the army to improvise later. Nathan nodded. Then, I can start working on the map. Kai nodded. Sure, I will leave you two alone since I need to do my job as well. Call me if you have any questions or encounter any troubles. Nathan waved his hand and left the room. Kai and Via exchanged looks for a few seconds before nodding at each other. I will start working on the map. Sure, I will be watching you and start making the projection. At a certain period, we can start discussing to fix some details. Are you fine with it? Via asked. Kai thought for a moment and nodded. Yeah, without saying anything more, Kai proceeded with his task. He closed his eyes for a few seconds, creating the tunnel inside his mind slowly but surely. Grabbing the marker on the ground, Kai began with 2 straight strokes followed with a wavy pattern on the top. He marked the first stroke with an X to show it was this building. Kai started making his way to the north of that place, specifically toward the entrance. It would be easier to know their entrance and their location before filling the details. Vaya didn't understand his intention, but still followed everything Kai drew, especially at the part where the tunnel descended or ascended to another height. Kai drew it according to the book, but it was still a bit horrible and sometimes made Vaya ask the details. However, no matter how complex the start was, it would never be compared to the details. As soon as Kai finished connecting the underground tunnel below this building to the entrance, he began drawing the detail around the entrance. The horrible part of this tunnel was how many tunnels suddenly up and down, creating a very complex pattern. There was one 15 meters below the ground tunnel and one at the 20 meters mark. If Kai continued to deepen more layers, he would actually lower it to 100 meters mark. Even Via was shocked, hearing how big the nest was. In the end, Via asked to do it in several parts, which separated them by ground level. For the first part, Kai only needed to draw from the highest layer to 20 meters in depth. When there were several layers within a single part, Kai used the wall to describe how it looked like. Vaya nodded and projected Kai's drawing slowly. And after finishing the first layer, she asked Kai to check the projection. After all, it was normal to make a mistake due to Kai's rough sketch, misunderstanding, and so on. Luckily, she had been doing this job for a few years, so she didn't make many mistakes. After fixing here and there, Kai and Via finally finished the first layer. Unbeknownst to them, they had spent almost 5 hours in this place, and Kai's belly started rumbling. After all, he hadn't eaten a single thing after coming to this base. I'm going to eat first, Kai said to Via and halted the project. I can guide you there. Via nodded, offering him to show the way. Thinking it was the first time he was in this place, Kai took her offer, thank you. However, his decision changed as soon as he came out of the room. In front of the door stood a table with a few dishes. Right on the corner of the table was a note from someone. Kai grabbed the note and read it. I know you are working hard, but you need to take rest too. I can bring the food for you, but you still need to sleep. 8 hours of sleep so you can work your brain again. You already have so much burden, so this is the only thing I can do for you, Michelle. P.S. Ayaka used magic to warm the food, and Tasha brought the mattress for you with her teleportation magic. Thank them as well. Kai smiled when reading this. He looked at Via and said, Let's eat! Via was hesitating to or not to take his offer. After all, his girls were the ones who brought it. However, peeking at the message that told her she could have it too, she nodded. Thank you. She agreed with him because the message was from the young lady of the Graham family, Michelle. The food was still warm, and Tasha brought him a 4 mattress for him and Via. In this case, they could sleep in this building nicely, especially inside the room, as there was a heater there. Kai asked a few things from Via, especially about the matter in the Graham family. Surprisingly, he found out that Via already served the army for almost a decade under the banner of Graham family and obtained recognition from the government. She was like a special officer in the army. Some families once invited her to join their family, but she rejected all of them because of how grateful she was to the Graham family. Kai had a new kind of respect for Michael, who never let talent go to waste. They finished the meals and continued with the job as Kai wanted it to finish as soon as possible. Chapter 154. Finishing the map. There are around 30 magical beasts in this room. Kai pointed at one of the pathways on the map. Alright. Via quickly added the information to the projection. They had been going for 2 days just to make a map. After finishing the layout, it turned out she could add some information such as the number of monsters. As for the size of the room, she could only roughly guess by Kai's drawing. A few problems occurred in this process. The first one they found was how a few tunnels suddenly had a dead end, even though there was supposed to be a continuation. However, Kai also couldn't make such an assumption because there was simply no magical beast there. Rather than giving false hope, he decided to make it as vague as possible. The second problem was the complexity of the nest. A few untouched tunnels looked like they were not connected to the main underground nest, but Kai felt that was not the case. However, his solution was the same, and let the army explore the area out. Luckily, Via said she could update the map in real time, so she would adjust the map if she got the information from the soldiers who explored the area. The last problem was the number. As expected, filling the number of each magical beasts in one specific area was easier said than done. Kai had been scanning it from time to time and just put a rough estimate. Kai didn't dare to put the exact number because some beasts might come or leave that place. Nonetheless, they filled up the room so the soldiers could understand their situation. Finally, their 2-day effort finished, and it could be considered a powerful weapon for this mission. We have finished our task. Via wanted to quickly give the data to Nathan, but she was too tired. She fell and slept on the floor. Kai smiled, knowing how hard they had worked in the past 2 days. They didn't get even a single sleep while continuously using their brains, so it was normal for them to get tired. In fact, if not because they were almost done, she might want to rest first and continue the job tomorrow. Nevertheless, Kai continued, saying it would be done in 1 or 2 hours. His eyebrows twitched and his eyelid felt heavy. It also started taking a toll on his body. Before falling asleep, he carried Via to the mattress before sleeping on the other bed. I will take a nap first. A few hours later, Kai opened his eyes again and noticed that Via had yet to wake up. He looked at the clock on his device, realized he had slept for almost 6 hours, and rose from the mattress. The sudden movement woke Via, who was on the mattress a few meters away from him. Good morning. No, I should say good night, Kai greeted her. As he said, they fell asleep at noon, and it was almost midnight. Ah, yes. Sorry, Via rubbed her sleepy eyes. How many hours have we slept? Almost 6 hours. It's 11 o'clock now, Kai answered. I will do the converting process and give it to Sir Nathan before sleeping again, Via said nonchalantly. She didn't fuss about the sleep or whatsoever and acted like nothing happened. Besides, Nathan would surely tell her to sleep after knowing about her condition. She would also adjust the map in real time, after all, which would require a huge amount of brain power. I will also help you. Kai nodded. I can handle it myself, though. You can get more sleep, Via suggested. Nah, I'm good. Kai shrugged before saying, I want to see the result as well. Via thought for a moment and agreed. Sure, let's go to my office then. Kai nodded and followed her. There was not much activity in the base right now, only doing some patrol. Miss Via, can I ask you a question? Kai hesitated for a few seconds before asking it. Why do you think your light magic was useless? I mean, you can make projections like humans or beasts, scaring your opponent and ambushing them with your weapons. As an unorthodox magician, he was very curious about this. Via thought about for a moment, and a trace of sadness appeared on her eyes. I have tried such a thing as well. I should tell you from the moment I knew my magic. Back then, I was so happy because the government would, without a doubt, grant me the S-rank magician title. Unfortunately, the moment they knew that my magic was actually some kind of light projection, they were disappointed. My family is just a normal family with me as their sole daughter. They fought in the front line for a long time, and I always loved it when they told me their stories, so I idolized them. Unfortunately, the moment my result came out when I was 4 years old, my family broke apart. My father felt so disappointed at me and left my mother with my second mother, thinking it was the curse or injury of my mother to produce a useless me. Even so, my mother and I could still scrape by until I became an adult with our savings. The happiness didn't last long. After a few years, my mother fell and triggered her past injuries but couldn't be saved anymore. The day I lost my mother, my former father took everything away, and I only had some money for a few days. At that time, I somehow met the Graham family and looked at their baby, young Lady Michelle. Looking how adorable she was, I couldn't help but use my magic to make a projection of her, in which Sir Michael found out. He said I was useful for him and offered me a place. I skipped school and joined the army at 16 years old under the banner of Graham family. After racking some achievement, my father and second mother came, but I severed my relationship with them. Sir Michael taught me about my light magic. First, I could use it as a projection to give a signal. As you know, we can't use radio too much because the enemy would notice it. On the other hand, they wouldn't be able to do anything if I made a large projection in the sky, signaling what they would do. Magical beasts wouldn't know anything unless they unlocked their intelligence, which was a rare case. My second magic was this one that I used to make a map with you, while the third one was a simulation. You could say it's a video. Of course, I could use the thing you mentioned earlier. However, it lacked several things that experts wouldn't miss. So Michael could identify it instantly, while you should also notice it. After all, it didn't produce a sound. I can scare a few beasts away with this projection, or maybe make an illusion like they are under attack from many, but I need to be close to use that magic. So Michael forbade me to use it because it was too risky. He said my life was more important than this magic, so I sealed it away. I talked too much about this. Via fiddled with her fingers for a moment before saying, "What I actually want to say is, I have nothing other than Graham family, so I will always be one of the Grahams. Seeing you will surely marry young Lady Michelle, I will eventually become your subordinates. At that time, no need to hesitate to command me for anything. I will help you, even if I need to risk my life. After all, young Lady Michelle was the one who unconsciously saved my life." She closed her eyes and smiled. Kai fell into silence. Normally, he could discern whether someone was lying from their tone and heartbeat. It might not be noticeable for normal people, but it was easily recognizable with his ears. However, she didn't have a single trace of lying in those words. Just as she said, if she didn't find Michelle to be adorable and created a projection of her, Michael might not find her talent. "Thank you." After that, Via said no more and entered her room in silence. She activated her computer and released her magic. Kai didn't know the process, but he understood it was converting from her projection into 3D digital image. "I will also send you the copy. Give me your device ID," Via said while stretching her hand to Kai. Kai opened his device as well as his ID and placed the device on her hand. Via pulled her hand to see the ID before giving it back. "Now we will just need to wait," Via muttered, while waiting for the process to complete. After a few seconds, Kai received a message which was from her. "You can use the normal projection and point it to the ground. It will create a 3D image." This was like when Ayaka searched for their first mission, only that time was a 2D image that she projected on the table. This time, it created a hologram of the map. Via also checked the one she sent for herself and observed it carefully. A few minutes later she asked, "How is it?" "This is the same as earlier, right?" "Yes." Kai knew she was just confirming the result. As soon as she got Kai's affirmation, she sent it to Nathan before rising from her seat and stretching her hand. "You should go back now and get some rest. I will do the same as well." She yawned. "Sure, good night." Kai nodded and left the room, heading toward the other girls according to the noises. Good night. Chapter 155, The Meeting. The next day, Kai slowly opened his eyes before feeling some pain in his head. Ugh. His left hand grabbed his head while his right hand took the device beside his pillow. He checked the time, and it was already past 8. I overslept, Kai complained to himself. Last night, he entered this room that had especially prepared for his group. Even Sanai was also stationed here, considering they would move together. There were many empty rooms in the abandoned building. The Earth Magician had reinforced some structure so they could be used, and the soldiers only needed to bring some sleeping bags or mattresses given by the support team. His body rose from the bed, and he looked left and right, not finding anyone in this room. As expected, everyone is already left. Kai left his bed and walked to the door. On the way, he felt a headache and staggered because he had slept for more than 12 hours, including the nap he took after finishing the map. Normally, he would still wake up just fine, but the task really took a toll on his mind, so he slept like a log. In the end, he didn't leave the room first. Instead, he fixed his bed hair first and warmed up his body. His headache gradually eased, and he could move his body as usual. Finishing his warm-up, Kai searched through the base, locating Michelle's position. It looked like there was no change in the activity around the base, even though he and Via had delivered the map. In other words, Nathan still observed the map before giving his approval. Thinking about it, he searched for Nathan and found he was sitting in his room. After finishing his first job, Kai didn't know what he needed to do. At the same time, it didn't feel right not to do anything and lazing around the room. He ended up sending a message for Nathan, in which he replied almost immediately, "Come to my office. You should know about my office with your ears, right? Well, if you don't know, just ask someone about my office." Kai smiled and shook his head helplessly after reading the message. He changed his clothes, wore his coat, and went to Nathan's office. It only took him a few minutes before reaching his office. He knocked on the door a few times and heard Nathan's voice from the inside. "Come in." Kai opened the door without hesitation and found Nathan playing around with the map. "Good work for this map. Although I have found some inconsistencies such as the sudden dead end, no problem on my end." Nathan fiddled with the map again, observing the number around the map. "Yeah, is this number? They are the number of magical beasts in that area. They are scattered, of course, but I can make it as a general one. Of course, they can move around, but unless they are moving to a big number, it should pose no problem as long as they are careful," Kai explained. "Fair enough," Nathan nodded. As for the tunnel, Kai wanted to elaborate it a bit more, but Nathan stopped him. "Wait. If you are talking about the plan, then we can discuss it in the meeting today. I feel bad for your group members for not taking part in this, but considering the discussion would be with all commanders in this operation, they could only go through the process with other soldiers." Nathan sighed. "I understand," Kai nodded, even though they didn't talk for a few days already. "Anyway, we will go to the meeting after Via arrives. So, she could do some battle simulation for us." Nathan pointed his finger to a couch located on the corner. "Sit there for the time being. I will summon all the people in the meeting room." Kai nodded and waited without saying anything. After another hour, Via finally entered the room. "I'm sorry for making you wait. It's fine. You two have worked hard for the past 2 days. We are not going to attack them until tomorrow anyway." Nathan stopped her from apologizing. He rose from his seat and said, "Let's go to the meeting room." Kai and Via exchanged looks and nodded, following Nathan to the meeting room. Suddenly, Nathan slowed down his pace and said, "We have 6 commanders this time, in which 2 deputies would be assigned to each of them. Including Via and me, you will explain your plan in front of 20 people. Are you ready?" "I'm ready." Kai nodded at him with a serious expression. Nathan nodded with a smile before opening the door, revealing the other commanders in this operation. However, he was a bit surprised when he found Michelle's teacher, Mano Yuki, in this room. She sat down in the front row like the 6 others, including Sherwin. Noticing their presence, the people turned around and looked at Kai before narrowing their eyes. Only Yuki greeted him warmly by waving her hand and smiling. Nathan patted his shoulder once again, asking him to come in. After that, he said out loud, "I have made you wait, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to discuss our current plan." His words made all the people rise from their seats and saluted. Via tugged Kai's hand before pointing at the 2 seats leaning on the wall. Kai nodded and walked toward those 2 seats, realizing it was their seats. He then observed the room. The room itself had nothing special other than the big table in the middle and 6 chairs right behind the table. Behind each of those 6 chairs were another pair of seats. According to his knowledge, the 6 in front were 1,000-men commanders, while the 2 were their deputies. Normally, they were in charge of 500 each. In front of everyone, Nathan took a seat and said to Kai, "These people are the commanders of each army. You may use them as you deem fit." Without waiting for his reply, Nathan turned around and narrowed his eyes. He predicted the complex map right in front of their eyes. Whoa! They were astonished for a few seconds, noticing what this map was. "General, is this the underground map?" "Indeed. It might not be a bit off, but I can proudly present you 70% of the map." There was even some information about the number of monsters. Although it wasn't too accurate, considering they might constantly be moving, it was enough to give you a general view of their number. The commanders opened their mouths in amazement, as expected from Miss Via Carmen. "Of course, she can't do all this alone, considering we don't have any information about the actual map. That's why I bring a helper, and he will also be the strategist of this operation." Nathan stopped their excitement. "Helper." The commanders glanced at a student beside Via, while Yuki kept smiling at him from the beginning. Nathan asked Kai to come, while the latter nodded and walked toward him, already expecting this from the beginning. "This is Kai Carter. He created the map with the help of Via Carmen, and he will be our strategist for this operation. I have my deputy, Sherwin, to take care of the soldiers for the time being so that we can discuss our plan here, undisturbed." Nathan said nonchalantly, "Kai Carter. I feel like I have heard this name somewhere." One of the 1,000-man commanders pondered. He had black hair like fire and a muscular body, making him look like a heavy fighter. Beside him was a green-haired woman with glasses. No one could see her body because she had yet to take off her coat, even though she was in this building. She fixed her hair and said, "He is the reinforcement. No, it should be the hero of Prince Rupert. I don't really follow his achievement in school, but outside the school, he also has an achievement in Cuba military base." Cuba military base. "Ah, I've heard that." The general of that base was Sanders, but the one who took the command of the army was a student. So it was him. Another 1,000-man commander nodded. He also had short green hair with an appearance close to the woman beside him. They looked like siblings. "Oh, if I'm not wrong, it's the battle against 20,000 magical beasts." He took the command of 4,000 soldiers and held on to the end. It was only after the reinforcement came, the battle finally ended. The same as the other 3. Another commander was a blue-haired beauty. She observed Kai. "Yeah, it's indeed impressive, especially when you only lost 1,000 people in that battle, which was supposed to be much worse. I read the record and thought they would lose around 3,000 people. But I was wrong," the last unknown 1,000 commander said. She placed her hands on the table while supporting her chin. "You need to remember, there are actually 6 intelligent, rank magical beasts there," said Yuki, supporting Kai. "These 6 people are the 1,000 commanders. They are respectively Colton, Alicia, Henry, Kate, Faith, and Yuki. Just call them by these names. If they think you are disrespectful, I will hit them for you." Nathan laughed. The 6 commanders were speechless. Although the ranking was actually the one that matters, the age difference was too big, especially when Kai was only a student. "I don't mind about all of this honorific thing. One should be in charge if they are capable. However, I still need to see how capable he is, not from the report, but from my own eyes." The first one to speak was the one who thought he heard Kai, Colton. At this time, Kai didn't answer him. Instead, he looked at the door before sweat appeared on his forehead. Chapter 156, Discussing Plan. Their eyebrows raised when they saw Kai looking at the door. Only a few people knew about Kai's hearing, and the fact that he was looking outside meant there was someone there. But the question was, who? With Kai's expression, Nathan suddenly remembered a person. The one who could make Kai flustered with just her presence. He started sweating profusely, confusing the others too, including Via and Yuki Bam. The door wasn't opened, but slammed. A gray-haired woman slowly entered the room. Kai closed his eyes, resigning to his fate. At the same time, he remembered what Ria said when they bid their goodbye. "See you later." These 3 words were never important enough for Kai, who was overjoyed by the medicine. Unfortunately, it also brought him to his doom, as he never expected his teacher, Ria Ross, would come to this place. "Who are you?" Colton, who asked the question to Kai, stood up and pointed his finger at Ria Ross. Oh, Kai widened his eyes. Colton, wait. She is. Behind him, Alicia stretched her hand to Colton and tried to stop him, but it was too late. Rhea Ross smiled and snapped her finger. 7 swords quickly appeared from the ground and trapped him inside the sword formation. The first 2 swords locked his neck from the front and the back. The other 4 aimed at his hands and body, preventing him from moving, while the last one stopped right in front of his little brother. Colton's body shook after this sudden attack. It might be possible to avoid this, but he just never expected that the person in front of him would suddenly attack like this. After all, if this woman were an enemy, Nathan would act first. As if he didn't see or hear Colton, Rhea turned and narrowed her eyes. Not at Kai, but Nathan. "Ya, old man. Have you written your will yet after sending the fake reports to me? You know that I can't report everything to you." Nathan's sweat dropped and raised his hand, asking her to stay away. "You need my permission to even give him a role in the army, and you said you couldn't report everything. I really should kill you." Rhea walked slowly at Nathan, like a boss concerning her subordinates. However, Nathan could only see her as a Death Reaper. Before Nathan could say anything, Rhea appeared right beside Nathan and sent a kick right on his face. The others obviously stood up when they watched this. Nathan was their general in this operation, and if he were hit like this, it would also damage their self-esteem. Out of everyone, there were 3 people who didn't stand up: Manoyuki, Kate, and Alicia. Alicia even shouted, "Everyone should sit still. You should already know by now about that woman's identity. The woman who is loved by the sword." Yuki closed her eyes and smiled. She hasn't participated in government activities since 10 years ago, but she was indeed a hero of the era. Killing an S-rank magical beast is easier said than done. If she actually comes back to the front line, the general position will naturally belong to her. "We don't have enough rank to interfere with her actions," Kate added. The others wanted to rebuke them but couldn't. They looked at Nathan, who was blasted into the next room, taking the full brunt of Rhea's anger. Not long after, the swords that locked Colton finally disappeared, and he could finally talk. "Damn, is that really Rhea Ross? I heard about her, but never saw her in action. Why is such a person coming to this place? Is she going to participate in this mission? If she is, it will be reassuring." Kai stood still, watching Rhea beat Nathan black and blue. After a few minutes, Rhea Ross dragged Nathan back to the meeting room. His appearance was horrible. Blood flowing from his mouth and a few other parts, such as his left hand, that bent in a weird way, and bruises all over his body. "Medic," Nathan called weakly. "Aren't you a bit too much? I still need to lead the operation after this." "A bit too much. I just punished you lightly. If we're in the simulation room, I will kill you 100,000 times until you feel death is better than living." Rhea snorted. "You are going to continue the meeting in this state. I don't care if you call that Evan or some medics later, but you will continue in that state for this entire meeting." "Ugh," Nathan looked down. "I heard someone is actually questioning my student's capability. Is that you, muscle idiot?" Rhea Ross took a seat on Nathan's seat and forced him to stand despite his condition. Colton hesitated after looking at Nathan's condition, wondering if he would survive. In the end, he thought the punishments would be more horrible if he lied. "Yes, Mom. Since you don't make an excuse and only question my student, you only need to stand in this entire meeting." "Yes, ma'am. Thank you." Colton nodded furiously before walking away from his seat and sat on the corner obediently. "Now, is there anyone who wants to question my student or me?" Rhea released her killing intent. "Don't say anything about military code or government. They mean nothing to me." "No, ma'am," the commanders saluted in unison. "You may sit." Rhea nodded before turning to Nathan. "You can start the meeting. That is, if you want to heal yourself sooner." Nathan only gritted his teeth and endured the pain. "All right, we are going to start the meeting. As she said earlier, Kai Carter is her student, and if I'm not wrong, he became her student a decade ago. So you can somehow relate how she crammed the knowledge into him and have these 10 years as an experience. That's why he did well in Prince Rupert and Cuba. Hence, I chose him to be the strategist in this war. Don't you worry, I will handle everything if needed." Nathan nodded before turning to Kai. "You can start telling your plan." Kai nodded before going to the table, specifically the map. "I want to separate the army by their roles: vanguard, attacker, defender, and reserve. Other than vanguard and attacker, They will have 1,000 people each. The vanguard has one important job, which is to explore and secure the area ahead. In case they are having trouble in the front line, the attacker group will move to the front. The defender needs to make a rallying point in each tunnel, so when the vanguard and attacker had trouble, they could retreat to the previous area and have the defender help them. Of course, the defender will need to secure the path between the surface and the tunnel, Kai explained. He purposely didn't continue about the reserve, as their job was obvious. The entrance itself is situated in the north of this underground nest. We are going to fully control the place around the entrance before slowly going toward the south. Vaya already knew about the plan, so she suddenly walked toward him and used her magic. The same map appeared, but suddenly tweaked by her. It showed a glowing red color to show how they were going to invade the nest. The red dot that was situated on the entrance slowly expanded. It spread only 100 to the south, but all the way to the north. It even covered the level below them. In other words, Kai wanted to kill every monster in the north first, before eventually coming to the south. This way, they wouldn't need to worry about their back. Timing is very important in this plan, Alicia commented while watching the simulation. Yes, Kai nodded. I want. Yuki raised her hand, signaling him to stop. Don't worry. We can brief the soldiers about it. They are not really stupid. We, the commanders, are enough to fill them the details about the timing. The soldiers on the scene will make the adjustment, but coordinating with them is a bit hard. Kai narrowed his eyes. Yes, that's why we have your ears. You can oversee the general situation and send our reserve army, or those defender and attacker groups, to help the vanguard meet the deadline. It's like we can't fight modern warfare because we are not allowed to use radio. Hence, we are going with traditional warfare and sending a messenger. Yuki nodded, assuring him, yes, that's my original plan. I will need to choose 100 soldiers that have the fastest speed, but I will need to trouble someone for this. Kai looked at the commanders. Colton and Faith might be the best for the vanguard unit. Henry and I have the strongest power, and our units are as good as us. As for the defender, it will require a calm and decisive person, so it should be Alicia. As for the reserve, Kate will be the commander. Besides, General Nathan and Sherwin would also stay on the surface. Right, Yuki answered Kai with the role. Indeed. We need to secure the surface first to make sure you are not trapped underground. Nathan nodded. Sherwin must be registering the soldiers, so we can easily separate them and have the students blend with our groups. As expected, Alicia will need to deal with the soldiers' distribution. Yuki glanced. Sure, I can do it. Alicia nodded. I will make sure the soldiers and the students have a balanced synergy. With Sherwin registering their traits, it won't take too long, I guess. We are done with the general situation and plan. Yuki nodded before returning the authority to Kai. Kai nodded and asked Via to zoom in the map to explain the magical beast's distribution. I'm going to tell you about the details now. Chapter 1.7 Rio Ross's Reason. Thus, the details of my plan. Kai ended his explanation. It had already been 3 hours since then, but no one was actually tired except, of course, Nathan. He hadn't gotten any rest and continued to participate in the meeting while standing. Although he had grown used to the wound, it was still hard to stay wounded like that for a few hours. As for the other commanders, none dared to talk about anything. They occasionally glanced at Nathan, but still discussed with Kai warmly. Of course, they didn't act like that because of fear, especially on Ria's scariness, but because of Kai's sophisticated plan. After an hour, they were dumbstruck and followed his explanation to the end. In the next hour, Yuki, who had the closest relationship with him, began asking about some areas. Kai answered them one by one with patience. Ria Ross didn't say a single thing in this meeting because every answer of his was already given by her as homework. It was only after the last hour the other commanders began talking. The meeting had been covered within 3 hours, and Nathan officially stopped the meeting. All right, we have gotten the strategy for this mission. You guys can start preparing the soldiers and your own group. I will search Evan Young, Nathan tiredly said while clutching his broken hand. Via was worried about his condition, so she followed him. As for the commanders, all of them exchanged looks, having no words to say. All right, you guys can do your business. Ria Ross waved his hand, gesturing them to go away. The commanders quickly rose from their seat, saluted to her one last time, and left the room. Outside the room, Kai could hear them talking. Ah, it's a good plan. To think a student is able to construct such a plan. You are right, especially when he is still first year. As expected from Ria Ross's student. Still, how can we actually know nothing about it? Indeed. Her fame was already resounded throughout the world as the hero of this generation, considering she beat an S-rank magical beast. True enough. Many actually want to learn her strength, from younger generations to some older men. Yet, no one would be able to put themselves in her eyes. No one knows. They continued talking about Kai, Ria, and the plan, before going on their own way at the exit. Kai turned his head around and looked at Ria Ross. Teacher, what are you doing here? I'm sure you are not that petty to come here just to beat Sir Nathan up. Ria fell into silence, stared at Kai, and let out a long sigh. She rose from her seat and fixed her long green coat. How about coming with me for a second? Kai accepted her invitation. Where are we going? Rooftop. I want fresh air. Ria walked out of the room and made her way to the top. The silence between them continued, even though the loud machine and noises from soldiers filled the atmosphere outside. After climbing the stairs a few times, Kai and Ria arrived on the snow-white rooftop. Ria walked forth, ignoring the quite deep snow, and grabbed the railing, looking down on the soldiers. Teacher! Kai called her name once again. You want to know my reason, right? Actually, there are several reasons, and one of them being Nathan. Is it too hard to talk about it with me? Kai asked carefully. Nah, it is not hard. Ria shook her head. Before explaining myself, how about you answer a few questions for me? Sure. Kai nodded calmly, staring at her back. When are you going to join the battle? I know that you are already excellent enough as a tabletop strategist. However, you still need to know about the actual battlefield, Ria Ross asked. I will be going as a part of the attacker army. Kai paused for a moment and continued. As for the timing, I am not sure. Most probably, I will go after 2 or 3 hours. All right. Since you have chosen the timing yourself, I have no qualms about it. Ria nodded. Then, considering Evan Young is better on the back, will you let him stay behind, or still bring him to the front line? I will bring him to the front line, and I'm sure teacher already saw through my intention just by watching my plan, Kai said while narrowing his eyes. True enough. You are going to set up a few rally points underground and stationed Evan, along with a few medics there, right? Yes. This is going to be a long battle, considering there are around 50,000 magical beasts inside this nest. The shortest will be 3 days with a week to be the latest. Kai nodded. Yeah, I can see the timing. At least, it's better than most strategies the army would think up as expected of my student. Ria chuckled. Kai smiled. So, have you overcome the trauma of me? He fell into deep thought. I know that you were training me for good back then, but it's really a brutal experience as expected. Though I'm not as repulsed like I used to be, I still need a bit more time. Ria Ross closed her eyes and smiled, walking toward Kai before suddenly hugging him. It's fine, I've prepared for such a thing. In any case, you can go whatever you want, and just know that I will always be in your back. Just like the situation in United Asia, you could easily solve it as long as you called me. Nevertheless, I was also to be blamed for this. Yes. Thank you, teacher. Kai closed his eyes and smiled. Is this all? How about you talk to me about your reasons here, teacher? After all, you aren't acting normally. Sure. However, I want to say one more thing to you. Listen well. Ria's expression turned serious. This path will require sacrifice, and you shall know that sometimes sacrifices are needed. Whether you are sacrificing 10,000 men to save a single person, or sacrificing a single person to save 10,000 men, I will always believe in your choice. We are human, and we will always be bound by selfishness like me, who will abandon the entire humanity just to save my only student and family. Kai closed his eyes and smiled. Thank you, teacher. After tightly embracing him for a few minutes, Ria released him and said, The other reasons I'm here. Do you hear anything wrong inside the underground nest? Anything wrong? Kai furrowed his eyebrows and tilted his head. None. I only hear magical beasts, footsteps this whole time, and some occasional roar from them. Teacher, are you setting up a flag for me? I don't have that kind of attention. Ria shook her head with a serious face. If it were the usual her who would shake her head while joking, Kai wouldn't need to worry so much. Is there something wrong about the mission? Kai asked. You have heard about the SS rank magical beasts, right? Those humans that had turned into half-beasts and escaped from the base. Kai's eyes turned sharp. Yeah, they escaped to the north, but I was not sure about their position. That's why I didn't participate in the Cuba War unless I knew that the SSS rank magical beast, the Protector, would join, Ria Ross said. I'm here just to check whether they are here or not, especially with my student participating in this mission. I see, Kai nodded. I could understand teachers' worry. You might probably think they have become that way because of your research, but for me, it's always life-saving research. That's right. At least, I want to kill them with my own hands because of this blunder, Ria said. Don't worry. I haven't heard a single thing about them in the underground nest. Since they are half human, half beast, they should be able to speak, right? Yet, I haven't heard a single word uttered in this place. Kai smiled. Well, I will probably watch your battle on the surface. I have already come here anyway. Ria Ross smirked. I will try to not disappoint teacher. Kai nodded. All right, enough about this serious talk. I also bring good news for you. Ria Ross smirked. The medicine for that little girl has finally done, and after some tuning, maybe in another year, I can get you medicine to kill the genetic cell during pregnancy. That's good news. Kai agreed with the first one. As for the second one, he glanced left and right with his fingers flinching. I am not sure whether I am prepared to be a father. Yet, I still have some responsibilities, and the girls are still active at school and mission. Maybe after I graduate, I will think about it. Sure enough, better to be safe than sorry anyway. Ria Ross shrugged. Besides, I'm not like that old fox who was at his death door, hoping to hug his grandchild before he died. Ah ha 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 ha. Kai let out a hollow laugh, not knowing what to comment. Anyway, since the medicine is ready, you can use it after this mission. Maybe you want to do it at my house so we can do another test just for precaution. Sure, I will bring Ayaka after this mission. Kai nodded. Ria Ross nodded and began walking downstairs. I have said everything that needs to be said. The rest is up to you. Teacher, Kai called her name to stop her. You don't need to come like this again in the future. If I have a mission in Canada, I will surely check whether the place has them or not. And probably, I will finish them for you. Ria smiled and turned around. If you can do it, that is. After saying those words, she walked away, leaving Kai alone on the rooftop. Chapter 58. The Dawn of the Battle. The next morning, Kai slowly opened his eyes after having a good sleep. What his teacher said yesterday kept him awake until midnight, and it even haunted him in his sleep. In the end, he just got some light sleep and would wake up the moment he heard something unnatural. Luckily, nothing happened at night, and Kai could wake up without lacking sleep. This mission might even last for a week. So, if he didn't have a good condition even on the very first day, he would certainly have it worse in the next few days. After waking up, Kai took a look at his device to see the time, and jumped from his bed when he saw it was already 7 in the morning. Although the operation would only start at 11, he thought he still woke up a bit sooner to do some preparations. He quickly fixed his bed hair and left his bed before noticing Ayaka standing beside the door. Ayaka. Kai was just sorting out his thoughts while preparing himself, but he realized that Ayaka was standing on the corner. You have a good sleep. Ayaka crossed her arms, leaned on the wall, and asked, looking at your expression earlier, are you occupied with something? Kai's eyebrows twitched. It would seem that her perception became a bit stronger since she usually would ask only the first question, and wouldn't think about the second question unless he mentioned it. Yes, I have a good sleep. Kai nodded. How about the second question? You look a bit off since yesterday, Ayaka asked calmly, hoping he would answer. No, it shouldn't be a problem. I have confirmed there is nothing wrong for the past few days. A gentle smile appeared on Kai's face. He grabbed some clothes from his bag, planning to change. If you have any problem, just consult it with us. Ayaka closed her eyes and said before opening the door. I will be waiting outside, said Ayaka, and left the room. Kai stared at the closing door for a few seconds before shaking his head helplessly and changing his clothes. He took a deep breath, walked to the door, and opened it. Ayaka glanced at him, but she raised her hand and pointed to the corridor with her thumb, asking him to walk instead of questioning him. Kai nodded and walked with her, thanking her inwardly for not asking for more. By the way, how is everyone? I don't really have much time to talk with you guys. Kai changed the topic to prevent awkwardness. We are fine. Most of the time, we are just getting accustomed to how the army does their job. Just some signal that we can learn to ensure we don't have miscommunication. Ayaka shrugged. Our job is nothing like you who needs to use your brain all the time. Haha. Anyway, we are going to enter the nest after a few hours. Theoretically speaking, the battle will be stabilized in 1 or 2 hours. At that time, we are going to move along the attacker team, possibly with Michelle's teacher, Manoyuki. Kai gave a hint of his plan. All right. That's right. Teacher Sanai is moving together with us, right? Ayaka asked. Yes. The teachers are going to move with their own students to ensure that the students don't do something foolish. Although we are from the top 100 groups, we don't have many experiences with the army. They use the teachers who should have experiences to observe them. Ayaka fell into silence for a few seconds and nodded her head. She could relate to it since Ayaka was one of the worst examples. She might have potential and pretty good strength, but it was shattered when she met Kai, if not because of him. Ayaka shook her head, throwing the thought of her mind. She couldn't have a depressing thought before the battle to make sure she could fight with her best performance. Anyway, the place itself is going to let us fight 50,000 magical beasts with our 6,000. If this was on the surface, we might need twice that number at the very least. Kai sighed. I can relate that, especially when I heard about the battle in Cuba. I'm sorry that I couldn't participate. It's fine. Everything is all right now. Besides, teacher said. Kai paused for a moment and shook his head. I shouldn't trigger a flag here. He was planning to say that the medicine was ready, but felt like it was triggering the death flag. In the end, he would tell it after this ended to give a nice bonus. What is it? Ayaka furrowed her eyebrows, curious. Is Professor Ria here? Yeah. She is going to watch over this operation. Kai nodded. I see, then we shouldn't make a terrible performance if we don't want to get lectured. Ayaka smirked. Nah, unless it's an official training from her, she wouldn't pick it up. Of course, she still gives some warning later. Kai shrugged. By the way, where is everyone? They should be outside, not having anything to do or talking with the soldiers. Kai took out his communication device and informed them to meet him right in front of the building. They waited for a while, and the lion group finally assembled. Yo, little boss. Sanai was the last one to come and immediately teased him. She called Kai's little bosses because he looked like one in the past few days. Teacher, don't call me that way, Kai shrugged. Haha, aren't you one? You are the strategist of this mission, and not with us these few days, only sleeping when you came back. I have so much to do, so I'm sorry. Kai apologized, feeling bad. He feared that they would overthink and let the army control his schedule. It's fine. Just ignore her teasing if you are bothered. Michelle stopped him and crossed her arms. Besides, you will be moving with us in this mission, right? Yes. Kai nodded. We can go to headquarters first to prepare a few things. Sure enough. Michelle nodded. On the side, Tasha didn't say anything and just watched them converse. She looked down and fell into deep thought, remembering the message Kai gave yesterday. Although it wasn't confirmed yet, the fact that Ria Ross went to the front line herself uninvited was enough to increase the probability by 20 to 30%. Kai gave her a few tasks and asked her to keep it a secret. In this base, only 3 people knew about the possibility of SS-rank magical beasts. Whether there would be the 4th person depended on Ria, and the candidate for the 4th person was none other than Nathan Graham. By the way, do I need to go with the group? Evan asked, as he would usually work with the medics on the surface. Yes and no. Kai thought for a moment and said, I will be working with my magic, but go with you first. It only took Evan an instant to realize Kai's answer. Yeah, you are going with us and become a healer if we reach an anchor point. We will set up a few points, so you are going to move constantly. Kai nodded. Gah, I should watch out then. Evan let out a long sigh. Yes. Although we are moving with the attacker team with Vanguard watching our front, and the support team will protect our back, we still need to be careful. Kai nodded. Don't worry, I might not have powerful strength, but I'm confident in my running skill if I'm prepared. Evan Young nodded. Anyway, we should go. Everyone nodded their head, and followed him to the headquarters. Because it was only for authorized personnel, Michelle and the others were staying outside the tent. Everyone was already standing by inside the tent, including Nathan, Rhea, Via, and Sherwin. Their focus was on Kai as soon as he entered the tent and nodded their heads, seeing nothing wrong with his attitude. After all, he was still a student. Having him help with the strategy and map alone was already shameful, so there was no way they would be complaining. Since all of us here, we'll begin our last briefing. Nathan glanced at the clock. We have 2 hours before the operation starts, Sherwin. He nodded and walked to the front. I'm sorry that I didn't attend the meeting yesterday, but you don't need to worry as I've memorized everything about the plan. We have checked the size of the tunnel and its number. Hence, we can have 500 people coming at once and quickly spread out. At the same time, we need to worry about our speed and timing. Just like how Kai suggested it yesterday, we will deal with it by using a timer. We would assume that everyone has admirably succeeded in their task within that time and move to the next phase. All commanders will stand by in their own army to lead them. Although most of you won't be able to see them anymore after entering, it's enough to boost our morale. This plan is only possible because we have Kai's extraordinary hearing to check everyone's condition, so don't worry, the help will come if you are in a perilous situation. Sherwin finished his explanation and stepped down. Then, how about the brain of this plan? Do you have anything to say, Kai? Nathan glanced at Kai, followed by others. I am entering the nest after a few hours as planned. Even if I'm not here, I will still check all of your conditions. I can ask my sis Tasha Carter to relay the message. Kai added his circumstances. Then, let's win this battle. Nathan nodded and closed their speech. Chapter 159, Operation Start. Operation Start, Nathan commanded, and Via quickly came out of the tent and sent a projection of "Go to the sky," signaling the soldiers to enter the nest. Kai looked at Via and watched how effective she was. If it was a battle on the surface, Kai could somehow picture how she projected a number to tell everyone they moved into phase 1 or something. This allowed them to gain a unison movement from the army without using the radio, and this mission gave them a chance to see what kind of power both of them had when they were together. Kai didn't say anything and listened to the footsteps. Just like their initial plan, the people began swarming the underground nest. Surprisingly, Eagle Group, aka Isabel's group, was one of the leading ones. On one hand, the small space of the tunnel would make her at a disadvantage. On the other hand, she could actually float a little bit to snipe most of the enemy, providing support. This would even get more effective in some wider areas. Outside, Isabel smiled after receiving the signal. She couldn't help but mutter, "He is already becoming a strategist on this big-scale mission. It's frustrating. He just becomes a favorite of the general, nothing more." The elder twin, Eva, snorted. "You can't say that, Eva. The previous head of the Graham family isn't that foolish. Considering his previous achievement in Cuba, it's easy to picture why he would become the strategist." The younger one, Eve, rebuked her. "You are right. Without his own power backing him up, the famous Nathan Graham wouldn't let him take the command." Isabel nodded while entering the cave. The cave was made of limestone, looking very solid and sturdy. Although it was dark, they had some sort of light already. She looked at Eva and nodded. Firelight. Eva activated a magic circle and summoned a red-colored ball from within. The ball glowed brightly and lit up the room. Isabel nodded to her before turning to their partner in today's mission. It was a 5-people group from the army. However, Isabel didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at a middle-aged man with short blue hair and a strict face. Teacher Gran. The middle-aged man turned out to be their teacher or advisor. He nodded to Isabel and turned to the army. "Nice to meet you. We are going together, so I hope we can get along. I will be joining you guys in the front while my students will be the support. Is that all right?" They only had an introduction because they didn't know who would be paired up with who. The entrance was indeed big, but the tunnel itself could only hold around 10 to 15 people. It was equal to 3 to 5 magical beasts, considering they were not as big as those sea creatures. "Yes, pleasure to meet you." The captain of their group nodded and shook his hand. "We are fine with that. I hope this mission can be a good experience for the students, since they are the future of our army." Gran nodded with a smile. They proceeded with caution, crossing this whole dark tunnel. They knew the tunnel wasn't big, and 12 people were only a measly number from the actual 6,000. However, they needed to separate themselves into 5 small tunnels right from the start. The 300 people were suddenly divided into 65-person groups, and they would go together with another group to make a platoon. There was a difference between the student group and the army group. Each group had 5 people other than the student group because their teacher was considered as extra. Before them, 3 platoons already marched through this tunnel in succession. Isabel and the others arrived at the first larger area. The size alone was quite big, around 30 meters in diameter. She felt like it could fit more than 30 magical beasts around here. The proof was the ant corpses scattered around the room. However, they also found 2 human corpses in this area. Isabel shook her head and closed her eyes, looking away from those 2 corpses. At the end of the room stood 8 people panting. It only took a second for Isabel to realize they were the first group that was coming here. They encountered those monsters first and unfortunately died. After all, they were outnumbered at least 1 to 3, forcing them into a disadvantage. The 4th group has students, huh? One of them muttered and furrowed his eyebrows. Good work, all of you, the captain of Isabel's group said. The 2nd platoon is leading the group right now, and your group's turn might come sooner or later. Be careful in the front, said the 1st platoon leader before glancing at the corpses. I will take care of the dead bodies and send our friends to the surface to get a proper burial. The captain nodded and said, We are moving. Isabel and the others couldn't say anything other than moving forward. Isabel looked at her teammates and swore she would protect her teammates. Just like the first one, they kept finding sacrifices from the soldiers. Isabel could understand Kai's plan by sending wave after wave of soldiers. It might be a cruel plan, but was the only one that had the least casualties and fastest speed. They could certainly send 60 people in succession and fill the room like before to kill the enemy. It might get fewer casualties, but the soldiers would exhaust themselves together. On the other hand, with sending the soldiers by waves, Kai could conserve the next group's energy by working the front group to the bone. However, this plan allowed them to advance much faster and with little casualties. It was an annoying plan, but no one actually refuted it. Of course, Kai would actually have the same experience like this later. Isabel continued advancing through the tunnel, meeting the 2nd group along the way. Just like before, they had 2 casualties and warned them they would be next after this. As a former top 10 group, Isabel and her teammates had gotten used to this kind of situation. The tension didn't make them nervous. Instead, it allowed them to focus. Even the captain complimented them in his heart. It was only after walking for a few minutes they suddenly heard the sound of battle. The captain said while looking at the next room a bit far from them, There is a battle ahead. We will assist them. Keep your eyes peeled, and don't let any of those monsters sneak attack you. Understood. All of them nodded and ran toward the next room while taking out their weapon. They entered this 40-meter radius room and saw 9 people fighting 50 monsters at once. Most of them were ants, while they could see a few earthworms. Engage. We are supporting the 3rd platoon. Upon the orders, the 5 soldiers and Gran immediately came to the front and engaged a close combat fight. On the other hand, Eva and Eve went to the side, waiting for the right time to unleash their magic. The other 2 protected Isabel from the magical beasts while she shot all these magical beasts. Of course, Isabel knew she would have a short range of vision due to the tunnel's size. That was why she didn't bring a super scope with her. Instead, she only brought a red dot sight and was planning to shoot them down without it unless necessary. Although she could use some guns or handguns to fight, she still used her sniper as it had already become a part of her. She kneeled on one knee and straightened her back, getting into a shooting position. Her vision stumbled into a big 3 meters high ant that was trying to bite a soldier. She took a deep breath and shot right on its head. Bam! The bullet pierced through its head in a split second, and blood splashed toward the soldiers and other ants. Yet they acted like nothing happened and continued to fight. As for the saved soldier, she only stared at Isabel and nodded her head before entering the battle once again. A flash of surprise appeared on the Eagles group, wondering what kind of will kept them fighting. Even though she almost died just now, she quickly got up and charged at another ant. Isabel's mind jolted and said, We can't lose to those guys, right? Obviously. Both men nodded. The ice guy, Tommy, slowly walked forward. I'm joining the twins' shield brain. You better protect our leader. Of course, leave it to me. Isabel smiled and pulled the handle on the right side of her weapon, and a bronze cartridge with some blue lines popped out and fell to the ground. If Kai were here, he would look at the bullet with great interest because the blue lines were the ones that exactly increased the power of her shot. Isabel paid no heed to the bullet and aimed at the second target. She became peerless support in this area because she got some distance from the magical beasts, allowing her to kill them without worry. Bullet after bullet popped out, and each shot killed a single enemy. Although she needed to lower her fire rate to make sure she didn't hit an ally, she could still kill a fifth of the enemies, and they could kill all the magical beasts in 5 minutes. Isabel took a deep breath and rose from the ground before changing the magazine. Good work, Isabel. Yes, thank you. Isabel nodded before looking at the soldiers who were raising their thumbs to her. Chapter 160, First Phase is completed. Move out. The 4th platoon captain commanded. They were thanking Isabel just now because of her performance. Unfortunately, it was only at the level of thanks, because they still needed to continue the fight, especially since they had a mission. This was Kai's strategy. As long as one of their team got heavily injured or fell in the battle, they could return to the surface before reinforcing their own team again. Of course, Kai wasn't that heartless to have them fight continuously when none of them has died. He set an upper limit that if their platoon had killed 50 magical beasts, they could change place with the next platoon. The 3rd platoon had 1 casualty, so they couldn't lead the pack anymore. In other words, it was Isabel's turn to lead the platoon in front. When their captain commanded, Isabel and the others walked forward to the next tunnel. Can I come to the front? An idea flashed in Gran's head. As the Eagle platoon's advisor, he certainly knew about Isabel's and the others' strengths and tactics. He looked at the 4th commander captain and explained, "My student is the #1 sniper in the Magic Academy. Seeing how small this tunnel is, I believe we can have her in front while 2 or 3 of us protect her." The captain lifted his eyebrows, pondering over the matter. "I have heard her name, Isabel Fisher, the current genius sniper from Sacred Magic Academy. You must be planning to have her shoot the magical beasts down before they arrive." Yes, most of these magical beasts were E to D rank. Her weapon alone could one-shot them in the head, and her skill is enough to ensure a one-hit kill. Gran nodded. "I know." He furrowed his eyebrows and gazed at his teammates, who were dominated by females. One of them nodded, and the others followed. He, as their leader, decided it was the best and agreed. "But since we have some turns here and there, we will assume the original formation. Is that all right?" "Yes. We are aiming for the 50 magical beasts target." Gran smiled. Who would actually want their teammates to die or be heavily injured? Only a twisted person would love to see that. "All right. According to the map, we will have another 2 turns before fighting a large platoon. After that, our vanguard unit is done because this is when the tunnel splits once again." The platoons nodded, hoping not to get injured. Isabel came to the front with her sniper in tow. The loud noise from her sniper would surely echo inside this cave, so she brought a suppressor with her. Isabel came to the front with her sniper in tow. Gran and the captain clenched their swords, making sure she was safe. Eva brightened her red-colored ball and moved it to the front, so they could spot the magical beasts in advance. 1 minute later, a screeching sound slowly echoed through the tunnel as a red-colored ant charged at them. Gran took a defense position to take on this ant, but a small gunshot sound filled their ears. Tap! Ava's light ball already covered a few meters ahead, so the moment the ant became visible, Isabel pulled her trigger. It blasted the ant's head, leaving no hope for survival. They stared at the ant that was falling to the ground, ignored it, and moved forward. If they were too slow, the next platoon would catch up with them. Just like how it was effective to have Isabel in the front, they proceeded faster than any platoons before them and stopped the moment they found a tunnel that would lead to a bigger area. "The area in front of us will be the last battlefield for the first wave team. The second wave will take over," the captain informed them. "According to the information, there are around 40 magical beasts in front of us. We have advanced a bit too fast, so we have time to discuss strategies. How about leading them inside this tunnel?" Isabel asked with a thoughtful look, as if she was thinking something ridiculous. Gran furrowed his eyebrows. "Mind elaborating on your plan?" The captain also had no problem taking as many plans as possible, so he could consider which one was the best. Since the tunnel can only hold 3 magical beasts at a time, we can draw them into this tunnel and slowly chip away their number. The wall of dying insects will also slow them down, Isabel said. Gran thought for a moment and felt it was a good plan. However, I still can't agree with that plan. We have delayed as much as possible to fight them in the winter to lower their ability. We can create a ruckus by fighting them and jumping around them. The captain shook his head. That is a good plan, but not the best. Gran also agreed to the decision, so he added, yeah, when we meet the team behind us and fight like that, they will have a hard time to react because of this darkness. We might stumble onto them and get swarmed by the magical beasts. I know, but Isabel closed her eyes, pondering what good reason she actually had. Unfortunately, even after thinking for a minute, she couldn't come up with a reason that let her convince them, forcing her to abandon the idea. Still, it's hard to fight all 40 of them in this place. Should we wait for the next platoon to help us? That way, we will have 21 people, while those creatures only have 40. I believe it's not hard, the captain suggested. But, Isabel wanted to say, it would bring displeasure from the soldiers, because only their platoon waited for another platoon. Gran figured her out and assured her. You don't need to worry about that. The soldiers actually don't think that way. Besides, do you know why we are placed in the 4th position with 2 other platoons behind us? No, Isabel shook her head. It's simple. We can increase the students' safety this way, because we can rely on the 5th platoon and have the 6th as our backup. If we are in 3rd, we couldn't really do it because it will disrupt the entire plan and slow down our pace. That's why this position is perfect for adding students. Gran explained while the captain gave the nod as proof he was right. I see. Isabel looked down, thinking something in her mind. I will follow the order. We have a 3-minute interval with the 5th platoon, so we can discuss a smaller plan. The captain finally joined their conversation. The students will help us from the side, especially Isabel Fisher. The soldiers will fight them in the front line, and you will attack any insects that might kill us. Understood. They continued talking with low voices because they were afraid that the magical beasts would hear them. Although they couldn't use the radio because radio waves are easy to get picked up, they wouldn't easily hear them like this. The next platoon came not long after, and bewildered when they found them sitting in this place. The captain quickly explained their situation, and they agreed with the plan. Listen, make sure you don't make too loud noises. We will be swarmed by them if those monsters next door notice us. The captain warned them one last time. They nodded and moved toward the next open area. The front had 10 people that had the strongest close combat prowess, except the students. Isabel and the others crossed the tunnel and found many magical beasts, moving around like it had never seen them. Attack. The group quickly entered a fight with the magical beasts around them. As soon as the signal was up, Eva raised her light ball to shine the entire cave, providing nice lighting for the soldiers. Isabel aimed her sniper and shot the first round tap. The battle just started, so there was no point in searching for anyone in trouble. Instead, she killed another one before informing the shield user, Nicholas. You are my eyes. Inform me if someone might die. I will kill as many as possible in the meantime. Understood. Isabel gazed through the whole room and found there were around 35 ants with 5 earthworms. The earthworm had a slightly larger and sturdy body that could strangle someone to death if not eating them alive. On the other hand, the ants actually brought more trouble because its mandible might break their bone in a single bite. Luckily, the ant had a head, so she aimed at them for a one-shot kill. However, it was hard to hit the earthworm's brain to kill it. In the end, she could only shoot them twice before letting the soldier split it into half. Isabel's role was very effective in this battle, as she managed to kill 15 magical beasts. They were coming from the magical beasts she killed herself, and the one that fought the soldiers. Still, the soldiers managed to kill one magical beast at the very least, and swiftly moved to either help others or hold another magical beast back. Huffed. Isabel let out a long sigh after confirming they were safe. She glanced at the 3 tunnels that led to somewhere else. Our job is done. The path has been divided into 3, so we will stop here according to the mission. After destroying the corpses, we will let the 6th platoon to hold the pass until the next group comes, the captain said. They nodded their heads while feeling relieved when there was no death. Isabel closed her eyes for a moment and thought, "With this, the first step has finished."